Important update about YouTube playlists. Hey everyone. We've received many messages asking why our YouTube playlists aren't showing up. Do we create YouTube playlists? Yes, we absolutely do. So why can't you see them? Honestly, we're not sure. We've been in contact with YouTube support for several months now, but we still haven't received a clear answer or solution. After much discussion, our team has decided to take matters into our own hands. We believe the issue might be related to the number of playlists we've created on a single channel, possibly too many. Our solution? We're launching 2 additional YouTube channels, giving us a total of 3. This way, we can organize our audiobooks better and avoid the playlist visibility issue in the future. This change only affects our YouTube audience. If you're a patron supporter, you can still access all our audiobooks by visiting the collection menu on Patreon. Thanks so much for your time and continued support. Happy listening. If nothing else, at least let him use a proper bathroom outside his cell. As the former advisor to the Hokage, it was humiliating for Danzō to be confined to a tiny cell where even basic necessities had to be managed within its cramped space. If this became public knowledge, it would reflect poorly on both the Shimura clan and the third Hokage. Danzō was being held in secret, with such information classified from the general populace. However, the upper echelons of the Sarutobi and Shimura clans were exceptions to this secrecy. After all, they were staunch supporters of the third Hokage. "I'll think about it," said the third Hokage, his tone heavy as he puffed on his pipe. His plans for a peaceful day of rest at home had been disrupted the moment Takeshi Shimura arrived, throwing his mood into disarray. The thought of Danzō stuck in a maximum security cell, forced to eat, drink, and relieve himself in such a small space, made the third Hokage deeply uncomfortable. After sending Takeshi away, the third Hokage spent a long time mulling over the situation. Eventually, he donned his robes and headed to the Hokage office. In the office, Tsunade was still buried in a mountain of paperwork. Noticing her visitor, she didn't even look up as she asked, "What brings you here?" The third Hokage rarely came to the office these days, preferring to rest at home. If he came now, it must be important. It certainly wasn't to help with paperwork, given how hesitantly he lingered at the doorway, clearly struggling to find the right words. Ahem, ahem. Tsunade's bluntness caught the third Hokage off guard, making him cough awkwardly. Hearing the nearly lung-wrenching cough, Tsunade sighed, setting down her papers and crossing her arms. "This is about Danzō, isn't it?" Though her directness surprised him, the third Hokage felt a little more at ease as Tsunade addressed the issue herself. He explained the visit from Takeshi Shimura in full detail. After listening, Tsunade remained indifferent, her tone disinterested. "You know exactly why Danzō is being treated this way. He's a senior figure who's done much for the village, and I'd like for him to live comfortably too. But if anything were to happen because of that, who would be responsible? Could Danzō be trusted to behave? Absolutely not. The moment he found an opportunity, he would undoubtedly cause trouble. I'm not asking for him to be given freedom of movement," the third Hokage clarified. "I was thinking we could knock down the wall of the adjacent cell to give him a slightly larger space. That way, he could handle his daily needs in the other section. What do you think?" Allowing Danzō freedom of movement was out of the question. The third Hokage knew Danzō too well to risk it. But if he couldn't grant freedom and still wanted Danzō to live more comfortably, expanding the cell seemed like a reasonable compromise. The maximum security cells were tiny. Connecting 2 cells would provide Danzō more space while maintaining surveillance. "Why are you even wasting your time worrying about this nonsense?" Tsunade rolled her eyes dramatically. "Do whatever you want, as long as you don't dip into the village's budget. Build him a luxury prison if you like, I won't stop you. Don't say I didn't give you face. If you want to renovate the cell, pay for it yourself. I'll have Nawaki assist you. But beyond that, don't expect anything else from me." Spending money wasn't an option for the third Hokage, he didn't have much to spare. The Sarutobi clan was large, and their expenses were significant. He certainly didn't have private funds to cover Danzō's comfort. The Shimura clan would have to handle the costs. As long as Tsunade approved, Takeshi Shimura would ensure the funding was secured. Shortly after the third Hokage left, Takeya, Sakamo Hatake, and Minato returned to Hidden Leaf Village. With Minato's teleportation, the journey was as fast as a plane ride. After a brief rest, the 3 headed straight to the Hokage office. Not in a good mood? As soon as they entered, they saw Tsunade lounging in her chair, legs crossed and frowning. She shot Takeya an annoyed look and huffed, "The Shimura clan and the old man think it's too pitiful for Danzō to be stuck in a tiny cell for eating, drinking, and everything else. They want to give him a slightly bigger space. PFFT." Takeya burst into laughter. He had seen the special cells in Hidden Leaf Village's prison before. They were indeed cramped, barely enough to fit a bed, a small table, and a toilet behind the table. Saying that Danzo's needs were all crammed into one tiny space wasn't an exaggeration. What's so funny? Tsunade rolled her eyes in exasperation. Is the mission done? Mostly, but the third Mizukage escaped. Takuya replied. Hearing this, Tsunade straightened up and instructed the Anbu at the door, notify everyone to convene in the meeting room immediately. Yes, Lady Tsunade. The Anbu ninja carefully closed the office door before heading off to deliver the message. Thanks for your hard work. Have a seat and recount what happened. Slumping onto the paperwork-laden desk, Takuya lazily replied, there's not much to tell. Yagura and Genji lured the third Mizukage back to Hidden Mist Village. When his people signaled, Minato took me and the senior over to join Yagura. When the third Mizukage arrived, we attacked. I'll admit, his ice style is ridiculously strong. Well, that's obvious. Tsunade scoffed. He wouldn't have become Mizukage and led Hidden Mist Village for so many years if he weren't strong. Stop wasting time and get to the point. Shrugging, Takuya continued, the point is that the third Mizukage was being controlled, or swapped out entirely. This individual not only mastered powerful ice style but also wood style. Wood style? Tsunade shot up from her seat, her eyes scanning Takuya's face in disbelief before shifting to Sakamo and Minato. When both men nodded in confirmation, her skepticism turned to shock. Wood style? To Tsunade, wood style was practically synonymous with her granduncle, Hashirama Senju. And now, a ninja-wielding wood style had appeared out of nowhere. Tsunade was utterly dumbfounded. Chapter 467, Prepare for both outcomes and observe Hidden Mist Village. This imposter third Mizukage used the wood style, piercing roots jutsu to counter my ambush. Furthermore, their personality was extremely insolent. Sakamo Hatake reported with a serious expression, his tone resolute. I can confirm that this was indeed wood style. As for the individual's identity, that remains unknown. Tsunade was stunned, her mind spinning. She felt the need to take a moment to process everything. After uncovering the truth, the three of us didn't participate in the pursuit. After all, that's Hidden Mist Village's internal matter and has nothing to do with Hidden Leaf Village. Additionally, our cooperation didn't include assisting in the capture of the third Mizukage. You made the right decision. Tsunade acknowledged. Capturing him was never part of our agreement, and it's not our responsibility. Rubbing her temples, Tsunade regretted letting them speak before everyone else had gathered. Now her mind was a mess, and she couldn't focus. Calling an emergency meeting meant something significant had occurred. Those who were summoned immediately dropped what they were doing and arrived at the meeting room. It was the same group of senior figures, some retired veterans summoned back into action. A few minutes later. What? Wood style? That's impossible. Everyone was shocked, their eyes wide with disbelief. Even Tsunade, who had the task of explaining, looked helpless. I was just as shocked, but it's the truth. Tsunade said with a sigh. Minato, explain the situation in detail. Suggested the third Hokage, who struggled the most to accept the news. The elderly Hokage had wisely avoided asking Takuya or Sakamo Hatake, knowing they wouldn't entertain his request. Instead, he turned to Minato, who couldn't refuse. Minato, unable to dodge the responsibility, reluctantly stood and recounted the events in detail. Only after finishing did he sit back down. The room fell silent as the gathered shinobi exchanged uneasy glances, clearly still processing the information. After a long pause, the third Hokage broke the silence. Although this mysterious individual who can use wood style warrants investigation, our cooperation with Hidden Mist Village has been completed. That, at least, is a cause for celebration. Once the truth is revealed, the war between Hidden Leaf Village and Hidden Mist Village should come to an end, and the sea routes from the Land of Fire will be reopened. The mysterious person's identity and their mastery of wood style couldn't be pursued further for now. But the mission's success marked a significant achievement. Hidden Leaf Village needed this war to end to allow time for recovery and rebuilding. While everyone was curious about the true identity of this enigmatic shinobi, it wasn't their top priority. Even so, we should prepare for both outcomes. Koharu Utatane said, her face stern. After all, this isn't a matter Hidden Mist Village would want to publicize. Their Mizukage being controlled, or even replaced, and the village being manipulated for years, it's deeply humiliating. Would we be any different? Interjected Choza Akimiki. If it were Hidden Leaf Village, we wouldn't want to announce it either. So preparing for both outcomes might not even be necessary unless Hidden Mist Village chooses to continue the war. If this information were made public, Hidden Mist Village would become a laughingstock. Any sensible leadership would suppress such a scandal, at most informing their own upper echelons. After all, the consequences would be severe. First, the Blood Mist era had already tarnished their reputation with its brutal internal purges. Then, an ill-conceived war had drained their resources to the point of near collapse. If the truth of the Mizukage's situation were revealed, Hidden Mist Village would surely replace Hidden Sand Village as the most mocked of the 5 great shinobi villages. Choza Akimiki. Koharu was livid, her face reddening. You've been contradicting me for decades, do you ever get tired of it? The room fell into awkward silence as everyone watched the exchange with bemusement. Realizing he had spoken out of turn, Choza cleared his throat and shifted the topic. I think we should communicate with Hidden Mist Village first, gauge their stance, and then decide whether to publicize the matter. Why provoke her? The third Hokage sighed inwardly. Hamura Midokado suppressed a laugh, turning his head away to avoid making the situation worse. Tsunade, choosing to ignore the bickering seniors, calmly gave her opinion. I agree with Choza. We should first discuss this with Hidden Mist Village and observe their response. Koharu's suggestion is also valid, preparing for both outcomes is prudent. If Hidden Mist Village honors the agreement, this will no longer be our concern. If they don't, we'll be ready to expose everything. I'll issue orders to Orochimaru and Jiraiya to stabilize the front lines, withdraw our forces slightly, and wait for Hidden Mist Village's response. At this point, continuing the war was out of the question. They needed to see Hidden Mist Village's next move before deciding on further action. As the meeting devolved into lengthy deliberations, Takuya quickly grabbed Minato and made a hasty exit. He had no interest in the bureaucratic wrangling that followed. Minato, though initially hesitant, allowed himself to be dragged along. Unfortunately for Sakamo Hatake, he was left behind to endure the discussions. Tough luck, Takuya thought. Sakamo Hatake's potential retirement would depend on who was in power. If the third Hokage remained in charge, retirement was possible. But with Tsunade at the helm, Sakamo would undoubtedly be reassigned to key positions, possibly even taking over the Anbu. If Anbu didn't currently have a commander role, that wasn't an issue. Hidden Leaf Village could simply create one. Sakamo's combat style and temperament made him a natural fit for such a position. Tsunade wouldn't fully retain the old Hokage's cadre. She needed to replace them with individuals she trusted, and Sakamo was among her chosen candidates. Letting Sakamo retire wasn't an option. Tsunade would gradually reintegrate him into the higher ranks. As for whether it would offend the third Hokage, Tsunade couldn't care less. Does the old man even have any dignity left? Outside the Hokage building, Minato couldn't help but comment, the dynamics between those seniors seem a bit. You're quite the observant one, Takuya said, amused. Among the second Hokage's disciples, that old lady was the only woman. She was said to be quite beautiful in her youth and had many admirers, so. Takuya explained in a roundabout way. Minato paused for a few moments before awkwardly laughing. I get it. Even in smaller squads, having one attractive female member often led to issues, let alone in such a prominent group. Then why didn't she end up with anyone? Minato's curiosity got the better of him. Takuya's eyes twinkled mischievously as he added, it seems she was rejected by a certain Uchiha genius. Kagami Uchiha. The revelation was startling. Minato felt as though he had stumbled upon a long-forgotten scandal. Deciding it was best not to delve into ancient gossip, Minato quickly dropped the topic. Digging into such matters would only invite trouble, especially if they involved certain prominent figures, including those currently imprisoned. Meanwhile, on the front lines, the war came to a halt after the exposure of the third Mizukage's secret. Hidden Leaf Village's forces held their position, while Hidden Mist Village's troops withdrew following orders from Master Genji. Chapter 468, Anbu restructuring. In the aftermath of the scandal, Hidden Mist Village chose not to make it public. Under the arrangement of Master Genji, a high-level meeting was convened, followed by orders for Yagura to take charge at the front lines, oversee the withdrawal of troops, and lead a delegation to Hidden Leaf Village for peace talks. The war ended abruptly, leaving Hidden Mist Village's shinobi bewildered. To them, the war had started inexplicably and ended just as suddenly. Yagura, armed with his new authority, swiftly took command and oversaw the phased retreat of their forces. As Hidden Mist Village's troops withdrew, Hidden Leaf Village's forces also began pulling back in phases, including members of the Uchiha clan. The end of the war should have been a cause for celebration. However, the Uchiha couldn't bring themselves to rejoice, instead, they were frustrated. They had just been informed they were next in line for rotation, yet before they could even withdraw, the war was over. Many in the Uchiha clan were seething. Apart from Orochimaru, who remained stationed with a small force along the coastline, the rest of the shinobi returned to Hidden Leaf Village. Only after the peace talks between Hidden Leaf Village and Hidden Mist Village were concluded would Orochimaru and his group leave their posts, a necessary precaution. Orochimaru was unhappy with this arrangement, particularly since it was he who had to stay, not Jiraiya. To make matters worse, Jiraiya, upon learning he could return to the village to rest, didn't hesitate to flaunt this fact in Orochimaru's face. With the war officially over, Hidden Leaf Village gradually returned to its lively state. Unfortunately, Hidden Leaf Village's shinobi had little time to relax. The backlog of missions and requests accumulated during the war required a significant number of shinobi to handle them. Fortunately, Hidden Leaf Village had a large pool of capable shinobi. While those who had directly participated in frontline battles could begin their rotations for rest, others not from the main battlefield were assigned to tackle the surge of missions. Unluckily, Takuya and Minato were among the latter group. "What is this? I thought I'd finally get some time to rest," Takuya muttered, glaring at the scrolls on the table. He was tempted to kick Tsunade out for delivering such bad news. Sensing Takuya's discontent, Tsunade quickly swallowed her mouthful of food and explained, "The old man is planning to retire soon and wants me to prepare to take over as Hokage." Has he lost his mind? Takuya thought. Taking over as Hokage at a time like this? While the wars with Hidden Sand Village and Hidden Mist Village had ended, Hidden Stones Village was already showing signs of unrest and could attack Hidden Lee Village at any moment. Clearly, the third Hokage was looking to pass the buck. "So, I refused." A glint of amusement flashed in Tsunade's eyes. She wasn't foolish enough to step into a role where she'd be the scapegoat during such turbulent times. She argued that the transition should only happen when everything had stabilized, as leadership changes during chaos could destabilize the village further. In the end, the third Hokage was convinced. "Then what's with this mission?" "Refusing the third Hokage's proposal to step down early and sending me out on a mission are two entirely different things," Takuya thought. Tsunade continued eating as she explained, "The village has already prepared for Hidden Stones Village's unrest. Several shinobi have been dispatched to gather intelligence. One of our senior operatives uncovered critical information but was discovered and now needs extraction." "Senior operative? Who is it?" Tsunade's tone carried a hint of respect, rare for her, which piqued Takuya's curiosity. Besides Tsukumo Hatake, was there anyone else she regarded so highly? "It's Maraboshi Kasuke." Maraboshi Kasuke, the eternal geinin of Hidden Leaf Village. Unlike Might Dewey, Kasuke willingly remained a geinin, despite his skills. He was an unassuming older man who always carried cooking utensils, looking nothing like a shinobi. After finishing her meal, Tsunade placed her chopsticks down with satisfaction and patted her slightly rounded belly. This mission was initially meant for someone else, but with the Anbu restructuring and the addition of a new ministerial position, I had to recruit Tsukumo. "So, you and Minato will take this one instead." Poor Minato. Wait, why was he feeling pity for someone else when he was being dragged into this himself? Takuya scolded himself for his misplaced sympathy. Seeing his reluctance, Tsunade crossed her arms and said, "If you don't want to go, you can switch places with Tsukumo. I'm sure he'd be happy to take this mission instead." "Stop right there. I'll go." Takuya immediately accepted the mission. "I'll find Minato right away. Senior Tsukumo has worked hard enough, he should stay in the village to rest. This minor task doesn't need him to personally intervene. Major figures like him should remain in the village to hold the fort." Switch with Tsukumo? Not a chance. He had no interest in the Anbu minister position Tsunade was pushing on to Tsukumo. In recent meetings, discussions had revolved around post-war recovery plans and the reorganization of the Anbu. The third Hokage had handed Tsunade full control over these matters. As part of the restructuring, Tsunade proposed creating a ministerial position for the Anbu, a dedicated leader to oversee operations under the Hokage's command. While the title of Anbu minister sounded prestigious, the role was far from glamorous. It involved overseeing clandestine operations, coordinating a highly active team, and taking on a heavy workload. Takuya had no intention of working himself to death. Someone else could take the honor, like Tsukumo, who was practically destined for it given his combat style and operational experience. "Don't forget to finish cleaning up," Takuya said, grabbing the mission scroll. He flashed a playful hand signal to Pakura, who was nearby, and promptly left. Pakura hesitated only briefly before following him. Having successfully delegated the mission, Tsunade sighed in relief. But her satisfaction was short-lived as her gaze landed on the mess left behind, dirty dishes, leftovers, and a dusty floor. Her face darkened. Tsunade wasn't one to handle chores, and now, with Pakura gone, there was no one to help her. She'd rather face a battlefield than clean this mess. Meanwhile, Takuya appeared on Minato's balcony, calling him out. "Emergency mission. Grab your gear. We're leaving immediately." "Understood." Recognizing the urgency, Minato asked no questions. He swiftly packed his tools and joined Takuya and Pakura. "Are we in a rush?" Minato asked after they left the village, pulling out 2 kunai as he prepared for rapid travel. "No need to hurry," Takuya replied, shaking his head. "This is an extraction mission. A senior operative from the village has gathered significant intelligence on Hidden Stones Village. We need to meet him at a designated location and bring him back. The return trip might be urgent, potentially involving a large battle. Just be ready for that. Their haste wouldn't matter if the operative, Murabashi Kasuke, wasn't already at the rendezvous point. They could only proceed with caution and preparation. Chapter 469, The Perfect Successor. Madara Uchiha needed. If not for the mission details in hand, Takuya wouldn't have believed that Murabashi Kasuke, the unassuming old man, possessed such impressive intelligence-gathering skills. But then again, was it really appropriate to entrust a mission like this to someone so advanced in years? An elder? Minato blinked in confusion. Though they all operated within Hidden Leaf Village, many shinobi didn't actually know each other. Some hadn't even heard of certain names. Yes, an elder worthy of respect, but someone completely engrossed in the Will of Fire. Minato sighed and decided not to ask further. Hearing the phrase Will of Fire was enough to dampen his curiosity. After all, mentioning the Will of Fire inevitably brought up one particular person, the third Hokage. The man was infamous for using the Will of Fire to inspire, or manipulate, others. Murabashi Kasuke was a staunch embodiment of the philosophy, though he had been influenced by Tobi Ramasenju rather than Hiruzen Sarutobi. Even after hearing about it many times, Bakura still found the Will of Fire a bit perplexing. Spending time around Takuya, who often ridiculed the concept, had only reinforced her skepticism. Close to ink, you'll turn black, close to vermilion, you'll turn red. This old saying rang true. Takuya's disdain for the Will of Fire had rubbed off on those around him, making them view it with a certain detachment. To summarize in one word, manipulation. It's all just manipulation. In a dimly lit underground chamber, Madara Uchiha sneered as he glanced at the overly effeminate behavior of White Zetsu. So, your plan failed, didn't it? White Zetsu had gone out for reconnaissance and returned acting strangely. Where it once constantly asked about trivial sensations like bowel movements, it now seemed unnervingly delicate and fussy. Could it have caught something from the third Mizukage? Madara shook his head, dismissing the thought. Turning to Black Zetsu, he asked, have you identified a candidate? Yes, Lord Madara. Black Zetsu's head emerged from the ground. After extensive monitoring and evaluation, I believe this boy, Obito Uchiha, is the most suitable candidate. Black Zetsu detailed Obito's background and traits. Madara's interest was piqued. Arrogant and proud, yet naive and filled with love? How intriguing. In Hidden Leaf Village, Obito Uchiha was notorious as a failure among the Uchiha clan. But to Madara, Obito wasn't foolish, just somewhat slow-witted. If he were truly incompetent, he wouldn't have mastered the Great Fireball Jutsu so proficiently or demonstrated decent taijutsu. Obito's potential was evident, he just didn't know how to unlock it. Instead, he wasted time helping old ladies cross the street, making grand speeches, and orbiting around Nohara-rin. A naturally gifted individual with a simple mind and a heart full of love. Isn't this exactly the kind of successor I need? Such individuals were easy to manipulate and prone to corruption. Find an opportunity to bring him here. I don't have much time left. Madara instructed. And that girl, Nohara-rin. With Hidden Stones Village stirring, a new war will soon break out. We'll have plenty of opportunities. Once Obito was in their grasp, they could exploit countless chances to push him toward the path of darkness. The more innocent a person, the easier it was to corrupt them. Especially someone as single-minded as Obito, whose rigid thinking left no room for deviation. Once corrupted, such individuals were nearly impossible to redeem. It's finally starting. Black Zetsu grinned and vanished into the ground. Madara cast a disdainful glance at White Zetsu before closing his eyes and entering a state of rest. He needed prolonged sleep to conserve his strength. In a cave somewhere in the Land of Grass, Minato couldn't help but comment, the shinobi of this country are as unpleasant as ever. As a minor nation allied with the Land of Fire, the Land of Grass often collaborated with Hidden Leaf Village on missions and requests. Minato had carried out numerous tasks in the region but was consistently irked by what he saw. There's an old saying, a dog can't change its habit of eating filth. This village is rotten to its core. Only by addressing the root cause can anything be fixed. Takuya replied, unfazed. If change were possible, they wouldn't be a nation of opportunists. Takuya harbored no illusions about the shinobi of Hidden Grass Village. Their conduct in the original timeline was evidence enough of their nature. It was no surprise that the third Hokage allied with such a village. If it were up to Takuya, he would have severed ties with Hidden Grass Village immediately. What frustrated him most was that Hidden Grass Village enjoyed significant support from Hidden Leaf Village. During the Third Shinobi War, Hidden Stones Village had relentlessly pressed Hidden Leaf Village, not just because Hidden Leaf Village was weakened but also due to Hidden Grass Village's betrayal. On paper, they were allies. In reality, they turned against Hidden Leaf Village, leading Hidden Stones Village shinobi straight into the Land of Fire. Minato wasn't prone to complaints, so his grievances spoke volumes about how detested hidden grass villages shinobi were. I must remind Tsunade not to trust them too much when we return, Minato thought grimly. There was still time before the scheduled rendezvous. Takuya gestured for Pakura to come closer, indicating he had something to discuss. Minato noticed and tactfully excused himself. I'll scout the area. If anything happens, I'll let you know. Takuya waved him off. Go ahead. We'll be fine here. Pakura knelt gracefully, opting for a proper posture since sitting cross-legged would be improper in her attire. Fortunately, the cave floor was covered in grass, sparing her knees from the cold, hard stone. Since returning to Hidden Leaf Village, Takuya hadn't had a private conversation with Pakura. As someone he had brought to the village, he felt responsible for checking in on her. You've been in Hidden Leaf Village for a while now. How are you finding it? Pakura answered calmly, apart from some unwarranted hostility, it's been fine. With Kushina's companionship, Pakura didn't feel completely isolated. Thanks to Takuya and Tsunade's efforts, she was slowly integrating into Hidden Leaf Village, though it would take time for her to feel fully accepted. Some hostility is inevitable, Takuya said, studying her Hidden Leaf Village headband with a smile. Many Hidden Leaf Village shinobi lost comrades to Hidden Sand Village during the war, some even by your hand. The lingering tension is natural. Just ignore them. Their discontent is limited to stares, they won't dare act on it. I understand. Some things could only be smoothed over with time. From the moment she chose to join Hidden Leaf Village, Pakura had mentally prepared herself for these challenges. Chapter 470, Who knew Kekkei Genkai could be used this way? With Takuya and Tsunade backing her, Pakura didn't have to deal with any narrow-minded individuals causing her trouble. Takuya nodded, steering the conversation to a new topic. If you ever face issues, let me know. After all, you're someone I brought into Hidden Leaf Village, and you'll inevitably carry the label of being associated with Yagami Takuya. I don't have the best relationship with certain people in the village, so there might be times you'll feel the consequences of that. He paused before adding, by the way, can we talk about Kekkei Genkai? Kekkei Genkai? Pakura was momentarily stunned, not expecting this topic. After all, Takuya was a Kekkei Genkai wielder himself. Compared to her Scorch style, his Sharingan seemed vastly superior. From her perspective, her Scorch style paled in comparison to the power of the Sharingan. Still, although unsure why he was asking, Pakura began to explain her insights and experiences in using Scorch style. Her explanations were thorough, leaving no detail unexplored. Takuya listened attentively, his expression serious, as if he were a diligent student. After Pakura had laid everything bare, Takuya raised his hand, breaking the silence. I have a question. Can the attack forms of your Scorch style be altered at will? This was something Takuya had been curious about for a long time but never had the chance to ask. Every time Pakura used Scorch style, she would summon several fiery spheres around her. They looked like something straight out of a ghost story, but their destructive power was undeniable. The spheres didn't just burn, they exploded with devastating force. The explosions were powerful enough to rival a rank jutsu. And a rank jutsu, if you weren't prepared for them, could easily kill a Jonin. Shinobi were famously high on offense but low on defense. Additionally, most shinobi stuck to mainstream jutsu levels, C rank, B rank, and a handful of A rank techniques. Those who could wield S rank jutsu with ease were exceedingly rare. They can be changed, but it's troublesome. Pakura had been refining her Scorch style for years, choosing fireball-like shapes for their convenience in battle. Don't you think it's a bit monotonous? Takuya tilted his head, curious. Scorch style was undoubtedly powerful, but Pakura's usage of it never varied. It puzzled him. Why hadn't she explored other forms of expression? Takuya spread his hands. Why stick to fireballs? Why not try other shapes, kunai, shuriken, or even something akin to a Jinchuriki's tailed beast cloak? You're the master of Scorch style. It won't harm you. In battle, you could shroud yourself in flames, and with the burning intensity of Scorch style, most enemies wouldn't dare come close to engage you in taijutsu. Pakura froze. What? Kekkei Genkai can be used like that? Changing her attack forms from fireballs to other shapes wasn't entirely unthinkable. It was just that the process was complicated and not something she had pursued seriously. Her reluctance stemmed partly from laziness and partly from concern that altering the forms might weaken Scorch style's power. But the idea of using her flames as a cloak, that had never crossed her mind. Now that she thought about it, it made a lot of sense. Pakura started visualizing it, her body cloaked in a layer of flame so intense that no enemy would dare approach her. As for long-range jutsu attacks? Hey! Those required hand seals, whereas Pakura could send a fireball flying with just a flick of her fingers. If changing the form of her Scorch style could enhance her attack speed. Her eyes sparkled. She felt as if she had just opened the door to a new world. Perhaps my use of Scorch style has indeed been too crude. Seeing Pakura's brightened expression, Takuya knew she was hooked on the idea. He continued, switching the subject to Ice style. To be honest, I asked about Scorch style because I wanted to understand it better for my Ice style research. When it comes to Ice style, the contrast between Hidden Mist Village's Yuki clan and the third Mizukage is striking. The former's use of Ice style is lackluster, while the latter's is catastrophic in its versatility and destructive power. My advice? Experiment and innovate. Sticking to fireballs makes your attacks predictable. While your taijutsu is good, why engage in close combat if you can eliminate enemies from a distance? If Pakura could refine her Scorch style techniques, Takuya believed she would become an unstoppable force, a spiky porcupine no enemy could approach. Close range? Her flames would make it impossible to touch her. Long range? She could dominate with her overwhelming attacks. By then, Pakura's strength would undoubtedly soar, leaving her enemies struggling to find a weakness. Scorch style was already powerful as a ranged ability, but forcing an opponent into close combat and then burning them with a fiery cloak. That was the pinnacle of lethality. Ninjas must dare to try new things. The second Hokage, Tobirama Senshu, was someone who embraced experimentation. That's why so many groundbreaking forbidden jutsu and ninjutsu were developed during his time. But now. Takuya smiled faintly, leaving his statement unfinished. Modern Hidden Leaf Village seemed stuck in a rut. Was it because Tobirama had set the bar too high? Or were contemporary shinobi simply too complacent? It wasn't as if innovation was impossible. Orochimaru, for instance, excelled in pushing the boundaries of knowledge, though his methods often veered into dangerous territory. Takuya himself had developed a unique form of lightning style tailored to his fighting style. While he wasn't prolific in creating new jutsu, he understood the value of adapting existing techniques to suit his needs. Though Takuya admired Tobirama's genius, he knew better than to compare himself to such a legend. Tobirama's contributions to ninjutsu development were unparalleled. Still, even if creating new jutsu was out of reach, experimenting with modifications was a start. But how many shinobi were actually willing to try? You've got quite the imagination. Pakura muttered, at a loss for words. Takuya bringing up Tobirama left her speechless. Thankfully, he only used Tobirama as an example rather than drawing a direct comparison to himself. Otherwise, Pakura might have questioned his sanity. Dare to try? Pakura bit her lip, lost in thought. Actually, my lightning style techniques are the result of countless attempts at adaptation. Traditional lightning style didn't suit me. Takuya explained, spreading his hands. I'm not asking you to develop entirely new jutsu, just to rethink how you use Scorch style. Adapt? Pakura looked up in surprise. From what she knew, Takuya's lightning-based techniques, which complemented his swordsmanship, were entirely unique. Apart from Takuya himself, only Sakamo Hatake came close, but their styles were vastly different. Takuya's fusion of lightning style with close combat was something even Hidden Cloud's village, famed for its mastery of lightning techniques, had never achieved. She had always assumed Takuya had invented these techniques. To hear they were born from personal adaptation was unexpected. Now, a new question arose: who inspired him to start adapting in the first place? Chapter 471, Hidden Grass Village's Betrayal. Onoki makes his move. If Pakura had asked, Takuya might have shared his inspiration. But since she didn't, he refrained from mentioning it. After all, if he admitted that his fighting style had been inspired by his disciple Kakashi, no one would believe him. When Takuya started using his unique lightning-based techniques, Kakashi hadn't even mastered chakra extraction. Bringing up Kakashi would gain him nothing and might even make people think he was just showing off. Not far from the border of the land of grass, a tanned, wiry old man carrying a large pot on his back, complete with a ladle dangling from it, was making his way swiftly toward the land of grass. This man was none other than Marubushi Kasuke, the operative Takuya had been sent to retrieve. At first glance, it was hard to believe that this frail-looking elder possessed the strength of an elite Jonin. Despite his permanent rank as a Geinin, Hidden Leaf Village's upper echelons treated Marubushi Kasuke as though he were an elite Jonin. Normally, high-level missions were rarely assigned to him, given his vow never to rise above the rank of Geinin, a promise he made out of personal conviction. The third Hokage had long since accepted this and assigned Kasuke simpler missions typically reserved for Geinin. But Kasuke wasn't like Might Dewey, who was labeled a forever Geinin due to his lack of aptitude in areas outside of physical combat. Kasuke had all the necessary skills to advance but chose not to. Because of this, he had been nicknamed one of Hidden Leaf Village's eternal Geinin. With Hidden Leaf Village's elite forces tied up on the front lines of the war, the third Hokage had no choice but to entrust Kasuke with the critical mission of intelligence gathering. Kasuke didn't disappoint. He executed the mission flawlessly, gathering valuable information. Unfortunately, his withdrawal was noticed by Hidden Stone's village shinobi, necessitating a rescue operation to ensure his safe return to Hidden Leaf Village. This wasn't an uncommon situation for intelligence operatives. Any sign of detection meant immediate withdrawal and a distress signal sent to the village. Despite his unassuming appearance, Kazekage moved with remarkable speed, covering ground with efficiency as he kept a vigilant eye on the distance between himself and his pursuers. I wonder how things are on the front lines, Kazekage mused. I hope everything is going smoothly. Hidden Stone's village's growing aggression was an ominous sign for Hidden Leaf Village. During the Second Shinobi War, Hidden Stone's village had shown a similar inclination to attack Hidden Leaf Village, and only the interference of the Third Rukongai had prevented a full-scale conflict. This time, however, it seemed Hidden Stone's village wasn't going to let the opportunity slip away. With Hidden Leaf Village weakened by wars against Hidden Sand Village and Hidden Mist Village, and with too little time having passed since the Second Shinobi War to recover fully, Hidden Stone's village saw an opening. If they attacked now, Hidden Leaf Village's vulnerability could yield substantial rewards. Relations between Hidden Leaf Village and Hidden Stone's village had never been good, especially after Onoki had been humiliated by Madara Uchiha during his youth. That grudge lingered, making Onoki all the more eager to exploit Hidden Leaf Village's current state. But personal animosities aside, Hidden Stone's village had more pragmatic reasons to wage war. While Hidden Leaf Village had the deepest reserves of talent and resources among the 5 great shinobi villages, and Hidden Cloud's village was the most militaristically aggressive thanks to its wealth, Hidden Stone's village was a close third in terms of military strength. However, Hidden Stone's village's land was barren, with most of the Earth country being composed of rugged, infertile mountains. This lack of resources meant Hidden Stone's village had to pour everything into its military. Yet, this created a paradox: its military grew stronger, but its economy couldn't sustain such growth indefinitely. Without enough revenue to support its expanding forces, Hidden Stone's village faced financial collapse. Fortunately, the daimyo of the Earth country was as committed to military strength as Hidden Stone's village's leadership, and his support kept them afloat. But this couldn't last forever. When a nation's military power far outstrips its economic capacity, war becomes its only solution. And now, Onoki had set his sights on Hidden Leaf Village, whose current weakness made it an irresistible target. Not far behind Kozuke, a group of Hidden Stone's village shinobi was relentlessly pursuing him. Meanwhile, Minato returned from scouting with a concerned expression. Takeya, Hidden Grass Village has gone into full alert. He reported. Having visited Hidden Grass Village many times, Minato was familiar with their typical behavior. During the Second Shinobi War, even when disaster loomed, Hidden Grass Village's shinobi preferred to lay low and avoid confrontation. For them to be on high alert now suggested something was amiss. Not surprising. Takeya replied, his tone dripping with disdain. Hidden Grass Village's shinobi are as spineless as their namesake suggests. They're weeds, swaying wherever the wind blows. Today, they side with Hidden Leaf Village for benefits. Tomorrow, they'll betray us for favors or threats from Hidden Stone's village. I bet they've already thrown their lot in with Hidden Stone's village. Should we send this intel back to the village? Minato asked, frowning. A betrayal like this from an ally was aggravating, especially given the Hokage's insistence on maintaining ties with Hidden Grass Village. Minato agreed with Takeya, such alliances were better severed. Hidden Grass Village should have its military strength dismantled, leaving them no choice but to remain neutral like the Land of Rivers. No need. Takeya said, shaking his head as he gazed toward Hidden Grass Village's direction from their vantage point. Our mission is to extract Maraboshi Kazekage. Let's leave other matters to the village. If you're really concerned, you could always use the toads of Mount Mayabaku to relay the message. Since Jiraiya had already returned to Hidden Leaf Village, the toads were the best option for sending long-distance messages quickly. After a moment's thought, Minato shook his head. He'd rather avoid troubling the toads, especially given how often they were called upon for such tasks. I'll let it slide for now. We're almost done here anyway. Once we've got the Elder, we'll head straight back to Hidden Leaf Village. A day or two won't make a difference. Minato's face turned slightly green as he recalled the delicacies offered by the toads of Mount Mayabaku. Their infamous bug feasts were enough to make anyone think twice about requesting favors. Takeya burst into laughter, easily guessing Minato's concerns. Let me guess, you're afraid the toads will nag you? Could you not? Minato grumbled, rolling his eyes. The following day, as the rendezvous time approached, the group left their temporary hideout and headed for the meeting point. Minato took up his scouting role again, leaving Takeya and Picaro to wait at the agreed location. He's here. Before the scheduled time, Maraboshi Kazekage appeared, punctual and reliable beyond Takeya's expectations. Chapter 472, Rearguard missions are best left to those who need them. Missions involving extractions like this often come with intense battles. It's not uncommon for enemies to arrive before the extraction team even has a chance to rendezvous with their target. Landing steadily on an upturned rock, Murabashi Kazekage refrained from approaching immediately. His wrinkled, aged face turned toward the three figures ahead. He needed to confirm their identities first. "You're quicker than I expected, Senior." Takuya took out the mission scroll given to him by Tsunade. Holding it up, he used Hidden Leaf Village's special technique to break the encrypted seal and unroll the scroll in front of Kazekage. Only then did the vigilance in Kazegage's eyes fade. Once the identities were confirmed, Kazekage let out a sigh of relief. "So, you're little Tsunade's friend, Yagami Takuya?" Considering his age and seniority, it was perfectly reasonable for him to address Tsunade as Little Tsunade. Most Hidden Leaf Village shinobi were his juniors, after all. Little Tsunade. It had been ages since Takuya had heard anyone call her that. Tsunade's reaction to hearing it would undoubtedly be priceless. Takuya's mouth twitched slightly as he put away the scroll and changed the subject. "Senior, this isn't the place for idle chatter. Let's return to the Land of Fire. It seems Hidden Grass Village has sided with Hidden Stones Village." "You're right." Kazegage's kind and gentle expression turned serious. "There are still quite a few Hidden Stones Village shinobi tracking me. We need to leave now. I'll stay behind to cover our retreat." Minato volunteered for the rearguard duty. Takuya waved him off. "Bakura can handle it. There's no need for you." While Takuya would have enjoyed seeing Minato cause trouble for Hidden Stones Village, rearguard duty was more fitting for Bakura. Moreover, Bakura needed opportunities to contribute. It would help her integrate into Hidden Leaf Village. "Bakura?" Minato blinked in confusion, but before he could say anything further, Takuya had already turned to leave, leaving Minato awkwardly misreading the situation. Not long after the trio departed, a sizable Hidden Stones Village shinobi unit caught up to them. Facing dozens of pursuers, including two jonin leading the group, Bakura didn't give them a chance to react. She launched her most powerful attack, raining indiscriminate destruction upon them. The Hidden Stones Village shinobi, still focused on tracking Kazegage's movements, were caught off guard as fiery orbs descended from the sky. Boom. Under such conditions, the devastating power of Scorch style exceeded expectations. Hidden Stones Village's forces were thrown into disarray, with many dead or severely injured. The surprise attack Bakura delivered was nothing short of catastrophic. Scorch style. Bakura. Only after suffering heavy casualties did the Hidden Stones Village shinobi realize who had ambushed them and caused such devastation. Standing on a tree branch, Bakura glanced dispassionately at the carnage she had wrought. Without a word, she turned and left. Her mission was simple: act as the rearguard. Rearguard missions could take many forms, but the typical approach was to delay and block the enemy, preventing them from continuing their pursuit. Bakura, however, had annihilated over half the pursuers. Faced with such losses, the remaining Hidden Stones Village shinobi lacked the courage to chase her further. Chasing Bakura meant risking total annihilation, a gamble they were unwilling to take. After finishing her task, Bakura left without looking back. Takuya and the others weren't moving particularly fast. Before long, Bakura caught up to them. "How did it go?" Takuya asked, glancing back. "A squad led by two jonin, but no elite jonin. Over half were killed or injured. They shouldn't pursue further." Bakura replied after some thought. Takuya grinned and gave her a thumbs up. "Well done. I'm sure their heads are still ringing from the shock. A squad of dozens, ambushed mid-pursuit and losing half their number in an instant, no one could take such a blow in stride. Without an elite jonin to lead them, even the thought of chasing Bakura would be sheer folly. Bakura wasn't an easy target by any stretch." "Ha ha ha." Minato burst into laughter, and the relaxed atmosphere brought a smile to Kazegage's face as well. Trailing behind Takuya, Bakura's lips curled slightly upward. It was clear she was in good spirits. The conversation shifted to Hidden Stones Village. Takuya couldn't help but feel a twinge of sympathy for Onoki. Onoki really is something else. With no suitable successor, he's held on to the Tsuchikage's seat for so many years. That can't have been easy for him. Compared to the third Hokage and his contemporaries, Onoki was much older. Yet one had to admit, Onoki was the kind of person who only grew craftier with age. Unfortunately, his advanced years inevitably limited his strength. But with no appropriate heir in sight, Onoki had no choice but to endure. Minato tilted his head curiously. Hidden Stones Village's military is strong, and they have plenty of capable shinobi who can hold their own. Why do you say there's no suitable successor? This question had sparked much speculation over the years. Some believed Onoki was simply too ambitious to relinquish power. Others thought he was secretly grooming an heir. There were also rumors that Onoki intended to pass the title to his son, Kurotsuchi. As the Tsuchikage's son, Kurotsuchi's lineage gave him a significant advantage. He. Kazekage chuckled knowingly. Hidden Stone's village isn't lacking candidates, it's just that Onoki's standards are too high. How high are we talking? This claim piqued everyone's curiosity, even Pakura's. Old man, if you're going to bring this up, you might as well explain it outright. Why drag me into this? Takeya sighed inwardly, caught between amusement and exasperation. Onoki has grand ambitions. He hopes to cultivate someone capable of wielding particle style to succeed him. But his vision is bound to fail. That's insane. The idea of grooming a particle style user as a successor was nothing short of delusional. Ahem. Minato's expression turned peculiar. Well, I think it's clear why Onoki hasn't found a successor. His expectations are way too high. Pakura opted to remain silent, her thoughts aligning with Minato's sentiment. Kazekage, on the other hand, continued to chuckle. History would prove Minato correct. Even by the end of the Fourth Shinobi War, no second particle style user had emerged to take Onoki's place. Good thing Hidden Leaf Village doesn't require mastering wood style to become Hokage. That would have been a nightmare. Thinking of Hidden Leaf Village's history, Minato couldn't resist poking fun at the idea. Chapter 473, Different Positions. No need to force harmony with such high expectations. Even Dobirama Senju would have been disqualified in Hidden Leaf Village. Imagine being unable to use wood style. Would you even dare to succeed the Hokage and become the second? Would you? Ha ha ha. Minato's quip was nothing short of genius. Takeya burst into laughter, while Maraboshi Kazekage maintained his signature smile. Pakura, however, couldn't help but chuckle at the humor. Young shinobi often had plenty to talk about. Takeya and Minato bantered animatedly, occasionally joined by Pakura, while Kazekage mostly acted as a spectator. After entering the Land of Fire, Kazekage even demonstrated his impressive cooking skills to the group. It's said that when someone provides you with food, it's hard to speak ill of them. However, after tasting Kazegage's cooking, both Minato and Pakura couldn't help but look at him with newfound admiration, especially when he packed up his large pot and ladle, carrying them on his back. Senior, wouldn't it be more convenient to store these items in a sealing scroll? Minato, ever kind-hearted, couldn't bear to watch the elderly shinobi carrying such heavy equipment and offered a gentle suggestion. Takeya, too, often carried many items during his travels, but he always stored them in sealing scrolls, retrieving them only when needed. Carrying a large pot around like Kazekage did? Takeya would rather give up cooking altogether. Imagine the embarrassment of being laughed at wherever he went. Kazekage smiled faintly at Minato's suggestion. Those scrolls are too expensive for an old man like me. Besides, I'm used to it, it's quite fine. With no enemies chasing them from behind, the group of four didn't rush their journey. What was puzzling, however, was how both Takeya and Minato became increasingly distant toward Kazekage as the journey progressed. This was odd. Kazekage didn't need anyone to fawn over him, but as juniors, shouldn't they show some care and concern for their elder? Instead, the two maintained a peculiar balance, not too enthusiastic, but not intentionally aloof either. Pakura, who kept her distance, was understandable. Having joined Hidden Leaf Village midway, her position was naturally awkward, making it difficult to grow too close to anyone. But what about Takeya and Minato? Takeya's attitude could be explained, but Minato? Wasn't he the exemplary shinobi the third Hokage often praised? His behavior shouldn't have been so restrained. Kazekage felt suspicious, but neither Takeya nor Minato seemed to notice. The reason they kept their distance from Kazekage was quite simple. To Takeya, Kazekage was just another relic from the era of the third Hokage, a well-meaning relic, perhaps, but their positions inherently clashed. Respect for Kazegage's character didn't mean they could find common ground. And since they couldn't truly align, why go out of his way to curry favor? A polite level of respect sufficed. Once the mission ended, Takeya planned to part ways, knowing there would be little reason to meet again. Minato's reasoning was even simpler. Since Kazekage represented the ideals of the Will of Fire, maintaining some distance was the safest choice. Better to avoid inadvertently getting himself, or Takeya, into trouble. 3 days after entering the Land of Fire, the group arrived at Hidden Leaf Village and headed to the Hokage's office to report their mission. The debriefing process went smoothly. After Tsunade inquired about the general details and stamped the mission scroll, the assignment was officially completed. Takeya and the others only needed to wait for their reward and contribution points. Oh, by the way, Hidden Grass Village seems off. The village has entered a state of high alert and appears to have aligned with Hidden Stone's village. Be prepared, another war could break out at any time. After reminding Tsunade, Takeya led Minato and Pakura out of the office. Kazegage's specific mission didn't concern them, as Tsunade would handle it appropriately. These past few years have been tough for the village. Minato sighed as they left the Hokage building. The Second Shinobi War had only ended a few years ago, and now the Third Shinobi War was looming, its outbreak chaotic and senseless. Battles with Hidden Mist Village had been fierce and evenly matched. But then Hidden Sand Village had struck covertly. Just as the conflicts with these villages were settling, yet another war threatened to erupt. Hidden Stones Village and Hidden Clouds Village's military strength has grown alarmingly. As their forces expand, the hawkish factions within their villages grow bolder, making war inevitable. Villages need resources and a way to divert internal tensions. War is the simplest solution. Takuya patted Minato's shoulder and shook his head. Let's go eat. These are matters beyond our control. Whether war breaks out depends on the enemy's decisions. Hidden Leaf Village didn't have the luxury of choice, it was always in a reactive position. Throughout its history, Hidden Leaf Village had rarely initiated conflicts. The Second Shinobi War, in which it declared war on Hidden Rain Village, was a rare exception. Hidden Leaf Village's wealth made it a target for other villages eager to take a bite out of the fat meat that was the Land of Fire. This abundance of resources and advantageous environment meant Hidden Leaf Village was perpetually under attack. The only way to change this dynamic would be for Hidden Leaf Village to dominate so completely that the other four great shinobi villages wouldn't dare to act. But as long as the balance of power shifted even slightly, war would erupt. You're right. I guess I'm worrying for nothing. Minato said with his trademark smile, scratching his head sheepishly. Takuya couldn't help but think that this habit of his would never change. Jiraiya's quirks were evidently infectious. Minato had picked up this mannerism after spending time with him, just as Naruto would in the future. Instead of heading to a hot pot restaurant, the group chose a small eatery where they ordered some food. Bakura, you should have some strong opinions on this. What's your take? Takuya asked. Although Hidden Sand Village's military wasn't as fearsome as Hidden Stones Village or Hidden Clouds Villages, the circumstances were similar. They all sought to resolve internal conflicts through war. Primarily, war is used to alleviate internal financial pressures and conflicts. Essentially, it's politically driven. Bakura replied after some thought. She wasn't familiar with Hidden Stones Village or Hidden Clouds Village as internal affairs, but Hidden Sand Village faced similar issues. Tight finances and internal strife left war as the only option. Delaying would only worsen their situation. Now you see? Takuya winked at Minato. Minato sighed and rubbed his forehead in exasperation. Fine, no point overthinking. Let's just enjoy the good days while they last. If even Yagami Takuya doesn't worry about this, why should I? Minato decided it was better to focus on simpler concerns, like where to relax later. Takuya, meanwhile, had a clear plan: eat, go home for fresh clothes, then unwind at the hot springs. Unfortunately, Mikoto Uchiha's sudden arrival disrupted his plans. Mikoto-san, have you eaten? Not yet. Mikoto sat down beside Takuya, her expression weary and troubled. Rubbing her temples, it was clear she had something on her mind. Chapter 474, The plot changes. Best to stay out of it. I'm not really in the mood to eat. Mikoto Uchiha offered a bitter smile, aware she was spoiling the atmosphere. Did something happen? Takuya put down his chopsticks. In such a situation, who could still focus on eating? Understanding the situation was the priority. Minato and Bakura also set their utensils aside, all eyes turning to Mikoto. Takuya, I need your help. The Uchiha clan needs your help. The Uchiha had stationed people at the village gates, relaying news to the clan the moment Takuya returned. Mikoto had come straight away. It looked like a serious issue. Could it be another conflict between the village leadership and the Uchiha? Takuya rubbed his chin thoughtfully. That didn't seem right. If the leadership had clashed with the Uchiha again, Tsunade would have mentioned it during their meeting in the Hokage's office. Tsunade wouldn't keep such matters from him, especially since anything involving the Uchiha also concerned Mikoto. And if Mikoto were involved, Takuya would undoubtedly step in. Is it something serious that you can't resolve on your own? Yes. Mikoto sighed heavily, her voice filled with frustration. It's Obito. The boy has gone missing. What? Minato's mouth fell open in shock. Obito Uchiha. He knew the boy, a kid who didn't act like a typical Uchiha. Obito enjoyed helping others, especially the elderly. Given his connection to Kakashi, Minato had some familiarity with him. Bakura, on the other hand, was clueless about who Obito was. Missing? You're not joking? Takuya was equally startled and pressed for details. When did this happen? Was it reported to the village? Missing persons weren't unusual in the dangerous world of the hidden villages, even in Hidden Leaf Village. People often disappeared without a trace, and many cases went unreported. Spies were often the culprits, making people vanish and taking their places to infiltrate and gather intelligence. But targeting members of a prominent clan like the Uchiha, that was rare. The Sharingan's ability to pierce through most disguises made such infiltration attempts incredibly risky. Not yet, Mikoto admitted. It happened 2 days ago. Obito's grandmother passed away. The boy was devastated. The clan helped with the funeral arrangements, but then Obito disappeared overnight, and his grandmother's body vanished as well. The clan, led by the patriarch, has been searching inside and out for days now. Such matters couldn't be made public, they had to be handled discreetly, at least until a report to the village became unavoidable. The Uchiha were desperately trying to locate Obito. Finding him would be ideal, but even recovering a body would suffice. If they failed, they'd have no choice but to report it to the Hokage's office and face the consequences. Obito's parents had died long ago, leaving him in his grandmother's care. Perhaps influenced by her, Obito had developed a habit of helping the elderly. But who could have imagined that he would disappear overnight? Could it be Black Zetsu? Takeya couldn't think of anyone else who would take an interest in Obito, the supposed failure of the Uchiha clan. Even spies looking to abduct someone wouldn't target a kid like him. Obito was too well known for being a nobody. The Uchiha now had to determine whether Obito was missing or dead. Either scenario would have significant repercussions. The Uchiha's power was already heavily restricted, leaving Mikoto no choice but to represent the clan and seek Takeya's help. Help? Not a chance. Takeya was almost certain this was Black Zetsu's doing. To abduct Obito and his grandmother's body silently from Hidden Leaf Village required a level of skill few possessed. Anyone capable of such an act wouldn't bother targeting someone like Obito unless there was a specific reason. More promising targets, like prodigious young talents or Fugaku's sons, would have been far more logical choices. But Obito? Before his eventual descent into darkness, he was little more than unrefined potential, a hollow shell of talent. This is difficult, Takeya finally said, refusing to agree to help search. He laid out his analysis calmly. Whoever orchestrated this, it's been days. Obito has either been taken far away or his body has been disposed of. Finding him will be nearly impossible. Given Hidden Leaf Village's current situation, Mikoto-san, you know as well as I do that the Anbu is still undergoing reorganization. There won't be much help. My advice is to report this directly to the Hokage. If the Uchiha find that difficult, I can speak to Tsunade on your behalf. The disappearance of a clan member was a problem that could be downplayed, or magnified. On the smaller end, it was a minor issue. On the larger end, it could spell trouble for the Uchiha, as the leadership might seize upon the incident to tighten their grip. That's why the Uchiha had opted to handle the matter privately, exhausting every avenue before resorting to a report. They understood all too well the village's stance toward them. Given the circumstances, searching further was futile. Reporting the incident was the best course of action. Despite having braced herself, Mikoto still found it hard to accept. If Obito had died on a mission or the battlefield, the clan could reconcile with such an outcome. But for an Uchiha to disappear on their own turf was nothing short of a slap in the face. Coupled with the leadership's stance, the Uchiha were forced to keep the incident under wraps, searching tirelessly in hopes of finding Obito, or at least his body. Unfortunately, they hadn't found even the slightest trace, despite exhausting all possible methods. That was why Mikoto had came to Takeya. But there was little he could do for them. Whether searching within the village or pursuing leads outside, Takeya lacked the resources to dedicate to such a task. Asking Tsunade for help was also out of the question. She was already overwhelmed and couldn't spare energy for this. As for confronting Madara Uchiha, Takeya had no interest in stepping into that quagmire. The storylines of this world had already deviated significantly from the original. That Madara would have Black Zetsu abduct Obito ahead of schedule wasn't surprising at all. The village side of things. Leave that to me. As long as the Uchiha don't stir up trouble, Tsunade won't target your clan. When you return, tell Fugaku to keep the hawks in your clan under control. If they stay calm, Tsunade can gradually dismantle the remnants of the previous leadership's policies. Takeya's expression turned serious. Remember, total calm is required. I trust Fugaku will understand what I mean, and I believe he's capable of ensuring it. Fugaku might not have been the most competent clan leader, he lacked authority internally and was too soft externally. But Takeya valued one thing about him: when he was ruthless, he could be utterly decisive. Chapter 475, since you suggested it. You can handle Fugaku Uchiha. When the time came to make a decision, Takeya believed Fugaku Uchiha would do the right thing. Even if it meant raising his blade against his own clansmen. As long as he could purge the troublemakers from the family, the Uchiha clan could secure a path for long-term growth. Fugaku wouldn't hesitate to act. I understand. I'll pass your message to the clan leader, Mikoto Uchiha said solemnly before leaving. The atmosphere for their meal was utterly ruined. Looking at Minato and Takura, who had also lost their appetite. Takuya sighed in exasperation. Why is it so hard to enjoy a simple meal? Forget it. Takuya tossed his chopsticks aside and stood up. Minato, head to the market and get plenty of ingredients. When I get back from the Hokage's office, let's have a barbecue this afternoon. Bakura, go find Kushina and gather the necessary seasonings. I won't take long. Got it. Bakura nodded. Minato didn't waste any time, vanishing from the small restaurant in a blur to head to the market. Takuya paid the bill and left for the Hokage's office. You're back already? Tsunade looked at Takuya in surprise. He had only left a little while ago. Why did he look so serious? Had something major happened in the village? Takuya pulled up a chair and sat across from her desk, meeting her gaze directly. Obito Uchiha has gone missing, along with his grandmother's body. The Uchiha clan has been searching for days but hasn't found any leads. What? Tsunade shot to her feet in shock. That doesn't make sense. Who could have entered the Uchiha clan's territory and abducted someone? Before the Nine Tails attack, the Uchiha clan's district was located in the village's central area, heavily guarded. Even a regular civilian would be immediately noticed upon entering. Tsunade couldn't fathom who could infiltrate the Uchiha's stronghold, abduct someone, and even take an elderly woman's body. Did they think the dozens of Uchiha Jonin were just for show? And it didn't end there. The Anbu, tasked with monitoring the Uchiha's activities, had reported nothing unusual. Given their recent restructuring, they hadn't paid much attention to the clan's odd behavior while searching for Obito. Tsunade wasn't the third Hokage. She had no intention of micromanaging the Uchiha. With the Hokage unconcerned, the Anbu wouldn't fixate on the Uchiha either. I don't know. Takuya replied, spreading his hands. They've already been missing for days. Whether Obito is alive or dead is unclear. Mikoto came to me personally, but there's nothing I can do. I'm reporting it to prevent certain people from using this as an excuse to cause trouble for the Uchiha. How strange. Why would someone target Obito specifically? Tsunade was deeply puzzled. As she gradually took on more authority, Tsunade had started paying attention to the Ninja Academy. She was familiar with Obito, one of the Academy's well-known students. Her assessment of him? A smaller version of Jiraiya. In plain terms, decent talent but not particularly bright. After some thought, Tsunade called out toward the door. Has there been any suspicious activity in the village over the past few days, especially near the Uchiha district? One of the Anbu guarding the Hokage's office entered, bowing respectfully before replying, None, Hokage-sama. No suspicious individuals have been seen near the Uchiha district. As for the rest of the village, it's difficult to monitor everything comprehensively. The Anbu were in the midst of a significant overhaul. The Anbu commander, Kakashi Hatake, was determined to implement sweeping reforms. Until the restructuring was complete, their ability to monitor the village's movements was limited. I see. Thank you for your efforts. Tsunade said, dismissing the Anbu member without further questions. She turned back to Takuya, her expression apologetic. You heard them. Takuya wasn't surprised by the response. If Black Zetsu's actions were that easy to detect, the Fourth Great Ninja War wouldn't have unfolded the way it did. Black Zetsu had fooled everyone, time and time again. It was clear what Black Zetsu wanted. Takuya didn't bother worrying about it. He had no interest in clashing with Madara Uchiha or preventing Kaguya Otsutsuki's resurrection. Whether Kaguya could successfully revive was uncertain, and even if she did, so what? As long as Takuya could protect the people close to him, that was enough. He didn't believe the Sage of Six Paths and his brother would remain passive if their mother truly returned. After all, the sage had demonstrated his ability to intervene remotely during the Fourth Great Ninja War. Unlike other transmigrators who feared Kaguya would kill them, Takuya felt no such concern. He knew the sage and his brother wouldn't sit idly by. When you think about it, isn't it terrifying? The Sage of Six Paths, with all his strength, had been watching the ninja world from the afterlife. And where was this afterlife? The Pure Land, a place where the souls of the dead gathered. Could it be that the sage had been collecting souls to strengthen himself? If the sage could exist posthumously, couldn't his brother as well? Given these considerations, why worry? Living a good life was the most logical choice. Strong enemies would naturally be handled by those equally strong. Alright. Takuya saw no need for Tsunade to drop everything to search for Obito. Reporting the incident was sufficient. What do you think about the Uchiha situation? The Uchiha clan had always been a thorny issue, standing as an obstacle since Tsunade had taken on leadership responsibilities. Personally, she bore no prejudice against the Uchiha, provided they didn't cause trouble. We'll handle it as necessary. Takuya said with a shrug. Just remember one thing, Fugaku Uchiha is someone worth aligning with. When the time comes to make a choice, he'll be more anxious than you, and far more ruthless. It's possible there will be significant sacrifices within the Uchiha. But for now, it's too early to act. Once you become the fourth Hokage, you can address it slowly. The Uchiha wouldn't stir up trouble in the short term. Addressing their issues now would be premature, especially since Tsunade hadn't yet assumed the mantle of fourth Hokage. Once she was in full control, dealing with the Uchiha would be far easier. Otherwise, the third Hokage and his old guard would inevitably interfere, creating unnecessary complications. You're right. Since you're the one suggesting this, you can handle stabilizing and communicating with Fugaku Uchiha. Tsunade said, promptly tossing the responsibility to Takuya. Takuya was left speechless. This is your problem, and now you're dumping it on me? Woman, you've gotten cocky. Suddenly, Takuya reached out and pinched Tsunade's cheeks, pulling them outward into a square shape. Tsunade, who had just picked up a document, froze in disbelief. The Anbu observing from the shadows were equally dumbfounded. These two. Could they be serious? This is the Hokage's office. You little brat. Tsunade erupted, ready to hit him, but Takuya quickly dodged, laughing as he left. Barbecue this afternoon, come early if you want some. Don't say I didn't warn you. Barbecue? My foot. You're dead meat, just wait. Rubbing her reddened cheeks, Tsunade muttered a few curses under her breath. After parting ways with Takuya, Mikoto returned to the Uchiha compound and relayed his exact words to Fugaku. Though the message was brief, it sent shivers down Fugaku's spine. Chapter 476, Kakashi's Crush, Obito's Obsession. Fugaku Uchiha couldn't help but suspect that the clan might have spies planted by Takuya or the village leadership. Otherwise, how would Takuya know about the hawkish elders within the clan? Could it be Mikoto? No, she hadn't participated in any of the private gatherings. So who could it be? It seemed that internal clan matters required immediate attention. They couldn't afford any trouble. Well concerned, Fugaku also felt a sense of relief. Takuya's words were clear: as long as the Uchiha didn't cause trouble, Tsunade would mediate on their behalf, and the higher-ups wouldn't increase the pressure on them. Other issues could only be addressed when the timing was right. After all, Tsunade had yet to officially assume the position of fourth Hokage. Holding power didn't mean every decision she made represented the authority of the Hokage. Only after formally taking the mantle would she have full legitimacy. Fugaku decided he needed a detailed discussion with Takuya. He asked Mikoto to arrange a meeting. In the garden outside Takuya's residence, a lively barbecue party was underway. Kushina had even invited her clan members, and aside from those tied up with work, nearly everyone attended. Unfortunately, Nawaki, who was stuck keeping an eye on Danzō in prison, had no chance to join the festivities. Even Mikoto, who had initially returned to her duties at the Hidden Lee village police force, took leave to attend after hearing about the gathering. Fugaku, with a knowing smile, not only approved her leave but granted her additional days off, ostensibly to let her rest, but anyone could see his ulterior motive. The party was cheerful, filled with laughter, though the antics of a few rowdy kids running around and yelling made Takuya's eyelid twitch. No matter the world, mischievous kids, especially those a few years old, were always a headache. Mikoto gently dabbed the sweat from Takuya's forehead with a handkerchief and handed him a chilled drink, speaking softly, "The patriarch wants to meet with you." Takuya took a long sip from the straw, flipped the skewers on the grill, and brushed on more oil. Clicking his tongue, he replied, "Tell him we'll talk later. It's still too soon. As long as the Uchiha don't stir up trouble, the village won't add pressure on them. This is a win-win situation. I trust the clan leader can manage it." It seemed the hawkish elders in the Uchiha clan would be having a hard time soon. Mikoto, however, didn't feel any sympathy for them. Her job was to deliver the message. Whether Takuya chose to meet Fugaku or not was up to him. Once Tsunade's portion of the barbecue was packed into a container, Takuya handed over grilling duties to Minato, who had spent the entire afternoon happily eating with his girlfriend. Scanning the area, Takuya spotted Kakashi sitting alone in a corner, his gaze fixed on someone. A mischievous glint flashed in Takuya's eyes. He walked over, clapped a hand on Kakashi's shoulder, and teased, "Not bad. Bringing your girlfriend to the party, huh?" "What? No, I didn't." Kakashi turned bright red, immediately shaking his head in denial. Inviting his students to the party was only natural, but Takuya hadn't expected Kakashi, a typically reserved boy, to bring a girl along. That girl was none other than Rin Nohara, the one who always held a special place in Obito's heart. At the moment, Rin was patiently entertaining the rowdy kids, her gentle demeanor shining through. If it were Takuya, he wouldn't last 5 minutes in her place. "She's been worried about Obito," Kakashi admitted sheepishly. "He hasn't been coming to class lately, and Rin's been upset. I thought bringing her here might cheer her up. If she's not your girlfriend, then why are you blushing?" Takuya raised an eyebrow, making Kakashi squirm uncomfortably as though sitting on a chair full of nails. "Alright, I'll stop teasing you," Takuya said with a smirk. "How's your training coming along? There's a practical exam later, and don't expect Pakura to go easy on you." Takuya had long delegated Kakashi's practical assessments to Pakura, who followed his instructions rigorously. Other than refraining from causing serious injury, her approach to training was simple: hit hard. "I won't disappoint you, sensei," Kakashi said, his expression turning serious. "Good. Just keep your head on straight." Though Kakashi often seemed aloof, he had a surprisingly thin skin, blushing easily when caught off guard. As for Rin, Takuya didn't know what to make of this kind-hearted, naive girl. She was warm and caring, almost to a fault, embodying the qualities of the perfect girl next door. Anyone she considered a friend could count on her support. But this trait often caused problems. Her warmth could give others the mistaken impression that she had romantic feelings for them. Take her relationships with Kakashi and Obito, for example. Rin seemed drawn to Kakashi, admiring his strength and often staying close to him. Yet she was equally gentle and kind to Obito, offering him comfort and encouragement. In many ways, Rin was like a radiant sun, shining her warmth on everyone in need. While Mikoto's kindness was reserved for those she cared about, maintaining a polite distance from others, Rin treated everyone with the same boundless compassion. And therein lay the problem. "That girl has a wonderful personality, she reminds me of myself," Mikoto said with a smile, noticing Takuya's gaze lingering on Rin. "No, it's different." Takuya shook his head. "Your kindness is selective, reserved for me and your family. Hers. It's like the sun, shining on everyone." Mikoto was taken aback by the comparison. A sun that radiates its light to everyone? Thinking about it, there was some truth to it. Mikoto began to feel sympathy for anyone who fell for Rin. While Kakashi sat in a daze, his thoughts elsewhere, Obito's situation was far bleaker. Abducted by Black Zetsu, Obito found himself imprisoned in an underground chamber. Groggy and confused, he awoke to see an unnervingly old man dressed in ominous attire, a man who looked so terrifying he almost wet himself. That man turned out to be Madara Uchiha, someone Obito knew from clan history. At first, Obito thought Madara was the Grim Reaper, come to take him to the afterlife. But once things were explained, Obito's fears subsided. Madara wasn't the Grim Reaper, nor was he there to kill Obito. Instead, he droned on about topics Obito barely understood. What a waste of breath. After hours of ranting, Madara realized Obito wasn't grasping the gravity of the situation. Meanwhile, a single comment from Black Zetsu, about Kakashi and Rin attending a party and having fun, had a much greater impact. Hearing this, Obito was utterly devastated. The thought of being trapped in this dark, lifeless space while Rin, the girl he adored, became someone else's girlfriend, or worse, someone else's wife, tore him apart. It was proof that the simpler a person's mind and the deeper their obsession, the easier they were to manipulate. Chapter 477, Can't Your Village Even Capture Its Own Tailed Beasts? With Rin Nohara as the trigger and the loss of his grandmother serving as emotional fuel, Obito Uchiha's personality began to shift in subtle but dangerous ways. None of this was known to the outside world. The matter of Obito's disappearance was quietly covered up. Over time, even his classmates at the academy gradually accepted the reality that Obito had simply left. As the dust settled, Hidden Mist Village's delegation arrived in Hidden Leaf Village, and peace talks between the two villages formally began. This time, Yagura openly represented Hidden Mist Village, coming to Hidden Leaf Village as a member of the negotiation team. It was widely known that Yagura was the most likely candidate to become the fourth Mizukage. To honor his arrival, Hidden Leaf Village extended him every courtesy. However, negotiations centered on war were destined to be lengthy and complex. Congratulations. It looks like you'll officially become the fourth Mizukage before long. After a day of negotiations, Yagura personally came to visit Takuya, accompanied by the individuals Takuya had requested, in hopes of retrieving the same Ota blade from him. The Hidden Mist Village delegation had brought 2 Yuki clan shinobi who had already awakened ice style as part of the deal. If that's what congratulations feel like, I'd rather not have them. Though Yagura was officially the chosen candidate for Mizukage, his expression was far from cheerful. The third Mizukage had left Hidden Mist Village in shambles. And thanks to Takuya's antics, the village's condition had only worsened. Hidden Mist Village was now barely hanging on. While Hidden Leaf Village had also suffered significant losses, everything was relative. In comparison, Hidden Mist Village had bled far more heavily. Yagura, ruthless as he might be, was loyal to his village and truly wished for its prosperity. Unlike some, he would never harm the village for personal gain. He hadn't initially been interested in competing for the Mizukage title. However, under pressure from his mentor, He was forced to step forward, using his influence to eliminate other candidates and secure his place as the frontrunner. Once the negotiations between the two villages concluded, Yagura would return to Hidden Mist Village to formally assume the mantle of Mizukage. Any progress in tracking the third Mizukage? Since Yagura seemed disinclined to discuss his promotion, Takuya shifted the topic. None. Yagura's youthful face creased in frustration. He had spent countless hours worrying over the matter. It's as if he vanished completely. There's no trace to be found. Looks like your village has a real headache on its hands. Takuya's tone was laced with schadenfreude, unabashed and intentional. After all, it didn't concern Hidden Leaf Village. Why shouldn't he laugh? And really, what was wrong with laughing? Hidden Mist Village had managed to create such a massive scandal on its own. Surely a bit of ridicule was warranted? At least Hidden Leaf Village had refrained from spreading the news, which was already a kindness. Yagura clenched his fists on the table, his glare toward Takuya growing sharper by the second. He wanted nothing more than to punch that smug face, but he restrained himself. It wasn't just because he would lose in a fight. Hidden Mist Village still needed Hidden Leaf Village's cooperation on critical matters. Besides, the ongoing peace talks made this an entirely inappropriate time for conflict. Alright, enough gloating. Let's get to the point. You're not here just to retrieve Seimada, are you? Sensing he had pushed enough buttons, Takuya changed the subject. If it were merely about exchanging Seimada, the negotiation team could have handled it officially. There was no need for Yagura to meet him personally. Clearly, there was more to the visit. You're right. Yagura's expression turned serious. On behalf of Hidden Mist Village, I am here to request your assistance in capturing our village's tailed beasts. Hidden Leaf Village had its share of problems, but Hidden Mist Village was in utter chaos. Yagura had to oversee internal purges, handle peace negotiations, and now take charge of capturing their village's tailed beasts. After consulting with his mentor, Yagura had decided to take advantage of the peace talks to request Hidden Leaf Village's help in capturing the 3 tails and 6 tails. Wait. Are you telling me your village can't even catch its own tailed beasts? Takuya's eyes widened in disbelief. Yagura, are you joking? While the 3 tails and 6 tails were difficult to deal with, being partial to hiding in the sea, surely Hidden Mist Village could manage without outside help. Yagura's fists clenched tighter, his gaze growing colder. Because someone infiltrated Hidden Mist Village and wreaked havoc, our sealing teams were severely impacted. They're nearly disbanded. Cough, cough. Takuya choked on his own breath. It seemed this was partially his fault. He hadn't specifically targeted their sealing teams during his operations, it was just bad luck that they got caught in the crossfire. Clearing his throat, Takuya quickly tried to deflect. Well, this isn't something I can decide. You'll need to speak with the Hokage or Tsunade. They're the ones in charge. Takuya had zero interest in a mission to capture tailed beasts. It was Hidden Mist Village's problem, not his. At most, Yagura could borrow Hidden Leaf Village's sealing teams to assist. Predictably, Yagura had anticipated this response. The Hokage and Tsunade both said the mission would require your consent before Hidden Leaf Village could accept it. What's going on with Hidden Leaf Village? Since when did high-level missions need the individual's approval before being assigned? Shouldn't the leadership's decision be final? Sorry, but I refuse. Takuya declined without hesitation. I have no interest in a tailed beast capture mission. You'd be better off asking someone else, like Jiraiya or Orochimaru, who's about to return to the village. They have the skills for it. With a sealing team, as long as the tailed beasts aren't hiding in extreme environments, success is practically guaranteed. May I ask why you're refusing? Yagura's tone was measured but persistent. The war is over, and our villages are negotiating peace. In the future, we're meant to be reliable allies. Wouldn't accepting this request strengthen ties and improve relations? Typically, tasks that bolstered inter-village relationships were never turned down, and the leadership often issued mandatory orders. Yet, when it came to Takuya, there seemed to be an exception. The third Hokage had outright stated he couldn't make this decision and had silently deferred to Tsunade. Tsunade, in turn, had shrugged and told Yagura, "You'll have to ask him directly. If he agrees, the mission can proceed immediately." Takuya sighed, sensing Tsunade's cunning play. "Look, my answer is still no. I'm not interested, and I don't want to get involved in Hidden Mist Village's mess. If you need help, there are plenty of capable shinobi to ask. Just not me." Chapter 478, This alliance is as reliable as the Atlantic Ocean. I personally hope that the relationship between our two villages can become a genuine and reliable alliance. Takuya said, spreading his hands apologetically as he addressed Yagura. But ever since the war started, I've been constantly busy, with barely any time to rest. I'm exhausted, and right now, all I want is to relax. As for a complex and time-consuming mission like capturing tailed beasts, I'm not interested in taking it on. My apologies. There are plenty of capable people in Hidden Leaf Village who can help. You should consider reaching out to them. That's quite disappointing. Yagura's eye twitched as he forced himself to remain composed. Tired and needing rest? Of all the reasons he might have expected for being turned down, this was not one of them. If Takuya had been occupied with other tasks or facing difficult missions, Yagura wouldn't have pushed the matter. But being too tired? What kind of excuse was that? Disappointed but left with no choice, Yagura departed. Takuya had refused the mission, and there was no way to compel him to accept. You turned him down? Not long after Yagura left, Tsunade arrived. Seeing Takuya lounging on a couch with a book in hand, she immediately understood that Yagura had left empty-handed. Yup. Takuya replied lazily, not even looking up. I recommended that he find someone else to help, like Jiraiya. That guy has nothing better to do in the village, so sending him out on a mission will at least keep him occupied and stop him from lurking around bathhouses and hot springs. Tsunade was momentarily speechless. That actually makes sense. Jiraiya had been back in the village for only a few days, and complaints about his behavior had already piled up at the Hokage's office. The third Hokage had been thoroughly embarrassed by the situation. Tsunade had wanted to kick Jiraiya into next week, but the slippery-toed sage had wisely vanished before she could find him. What about you? Why are you back? Don't you have things to oversee with the negotiation team? Takuya glanced at her over the edge of his book, a flicker of curiosity in his eyes. For a moment, he thought his eyes were playing tricks on him. Was Tsunade's figure still growing? It was almost like she was defying the natural order with some kind of cheat code. Annoyed by his gaze, Tsunade gave Takuya's foot a light smack to make room for herself on the couch. She plopped down, rubbing her temples with a tired sigh. There are a few minor details left to sort out, but the old man and the Council of Elders can handle it. With the elders involved, ridiculous demands like those from Hidden Sand Village won't happen. You're tired, and so am I. Might as well take a moment to relax. Fair enough. Takuya agreed, nodding. He couldn't argue with her reasoning. Instead of wasting energy haggling over trivial matters, it was better to let the experts handle it and give themselves some much-needed downtime. The negotiations between Hidden Leaf Village and Hidden Mist Village were tough, with every scrap of benefit hotly contested. If it had just been the third Hokage handling things, Tsunade wouldn't have felt at ease. But with the Council of Elders backing him, it was a different story. The Elders were known for their ability to haggle endlessly. With their help, Hidden Leaf Village could easily make Hidden Mist Village's delegation tear their hair out in frustration. As for the mission to capture tailed beasts, Takuya's refusal left the task to Jiraiya. It seemed Tsunade and the third Hokage had decided to keep Jiraiya occupied, preventing him from causing more trouble in the village. The complaints had been enough to make the third Hokage want to bury his face in shame. Tasked with leading a sealing team to assist Hidden Mist Village, Jiraiya could only begrudgingly accept his fate. The actual timeline for capturing the Two Tails and Six Tails remained uncertain, as it depended heavily on Hidden Mist Village's efforts. This was precisely why Takuya had refused the mission. If Hidden Mist Village had already pinpointed the tailed beasts' locations and just needed muscle to subdue them, the task wouldn't have taken long, and Takuya might have considered it. But with no confirmed locations, the mission would involve a prolonged search, potentially taking months or even years. Takuya had no interest in wasting his time on such an ordeal. With the Yuki clan shinobi delivered, Takuya ended his brief break and resumed his research into ice style. Don't be afraid. Just use your ice style as you normally would. I'm not going to conduct any human experiments or invasive studies on you. As long as you pass my tests, I can grant you Hidden Leaf Village citizenship, allowing you to live here peacefully. In theory, mastering ice style required combining wind and water chakra natures. In practice, reaching that point was far from simple. The negotiations between Hidden Leaf Village and Hidden Mist Village stretched on for 10 grueling days, even attracting the attention of the daimyo of the Land of Fire. The prospect of opening a maritime trade route, which directly impacted his wealth, compelled the daimyo to make a personal visit to Hidden Leaf Village. Finally, after 10 days of intense talks, the two villages signed a peace and mutual assistance agreement under the daimyo's witness. Hidden Mist Village was now officially aligned with Hidden Leaf Village's interests. However, as Takuya saw it, the alliance was as flimsy as the Atlantic Ocean was vast. While the agreement stipulated mutual assistance, it lacked any binding clause requiring either side to provide military support in the event of war. In short, it was an alliance in name only. Still, the document served its purpose. It prevented Hidden Mist Village from stabbing Hidden Leaf Village in the back. Large villages had reputations to uphold, and any betrayal would require a solid pretext. Given Hidden Mist Village's current state, even if they wanted to help Hidden Leaf Village in a war, They lacked the resources and manpower to do so. At best, they could offer symbolic gestures of support. With the negotiations concluded, Hidden Mist Village's delegation departed, along with Jiraiya and his sealing team. Their task was to assist Hidden Mist Village in locating and capturing the Two Tails and Six Tails. However, their success would depend largely on Hidden Mist Village's efforts. Jiraiya's team was there for combat and sealing, not reconnaissance. Every time Takaya thought of Jiraiya's resigned expression as he left the village, he couldn't help but laugh. No one, not even Jiraiya, could be happy about taking on such a drawn-out mission. Meanwhile, the daimyo of the Land of Fire left for his mansion with a beaming smile. The maritime trade route promised a significant boost to his coffers. Back in Hidden Leaf Village, the renovation of Danzo's solitary cell in the village's prison was nearing completion. Nawaki waved to the Anbu and prison guards stationed nearby. "Alright, the rest is up to you. I'll be back on schedule. Don't worry, Nawaki-sama. We won't let anyone get close. No need to be so tense. Relax a little." With a light-hearted laugh, Nawaki patted his stomach and left to grab some food, planning to return for his next shift afterward. Chapter 479, Danzo escapes, and Hiruzen Sarutobi takes a hit. Glancing at Danzo sitting in his specially modified cell, Nawaki couldn't help but grumble under his breath, "I really don't get what the Hokage is thinking." At a time like this, he still went out of his way to give this old guy a comfortable, private cell. This wasn't the first time Nawaki had vented about it. Danzo was here to serve time, not enjoy a luxurious prison experience. It was a complete waste. Even if the funding came from the Shimura clan, the decision to agree to such ridiculous conditions made no sense. Shinobi are human too, and even the most dedicated guards can't stay on duty 24/7. Nawaki was no exception. He needed breaks to handle personal matters, eat, and rest. To ensure proper oversight, the village had assigned a squad of jonin to assist him, along with Anbu operatives providing additional security. Given these precautions, Danzo escaping seemed impossible, unless, of course, there was an inside collaborator. The thought of a mole made Nawaki chuckle bitterly. Since taking on the duty of guarding Danzo, he felt like he'd become paranoid, seeing potential traitors everywhere. Yet, after so much time, nothing had happened. The only thing he'd managed to do was exhaust himself mentally. After finishing his meal, Nawaki planned a short nap. He stretched out in the rest room, propping his legs on the table and crossing his arms over his chest. Closing his eyes, he muttered, "When this mission is over, I'm taking a long break. This is ridiculous." It wasn't long before he drifted into sleep. But barely an hour later, the piercing sound of an alarm shattered the peace of the prison. Nawaki jolted awake and burst out of the room. What happened? No idea. The alarm's coming from the main entrance. Hidden Leaf Village's prison had its own monitoring system. If triggered, alarms would echo throughout the facility, signaling either an external attack or a major breach. An external assault seemed unlikely, making a prison break the most probable cause. Please, let nothing serious have happened. Without pausing to gather more information, Nawaki rushed toward Danzo's cell. But a sinking feeling of dread was already growing in his chest. On his way, he saw several unconscious guards sprawled across the floor. That alone told him the situation was dire. Ignoring the fallen shinobi, Nawaki focused on reaching Danzo's cell as quickly as possible. When he finally arrived, his worst fears were confirmed. The Anbu operative assigned to watch Danzo had been dumped inside the cell, unconscious. Danzo himself was nowhere to be found. The squad assisting with security? Gone as well. Staring at the empty cell, Nawaki's frustration boiled over. He wanted to slap himself for the careless thought he'd had earlier. Danzo escaping would require inside help. Now, the scenario had played out exactly as he'd dreaded, slapping him in the face, hard. The prison descended into chaos. The successful escape of a high-profile prisoner had thrown everyone into disarray. To make matters worse, the alarm had stirred up the other inmates, causing unrest. For the guards, maintaining order among the prisoners took precedence over pursuing Danzo. A full-blown riot loomed, threatening to overwhelm the limited prison staff. Hidden Leaf Village's prison held some of the most dangerous individuals, and if they revolted, the situation could spiral out of control. In the original timeline, there had been a prison riot that allowed numerous inmates to escape, creating havoc throughout the village. Faced with a choice, chase after Danzo or stay to suppress the prisoners, Nawaki made a reluctant decision. Cursing under his breath, he chose to remain behind. If he left, the prison could devolve into an even greater catastrophe. He quickly dispatched messengers to inform the Hokage's office. At the Hokage's office, Tsunade, the third Hokage, and the two elder advisors were in the middle of a discussion about hospital supplies. The urgent knock at the door startled everyone before an Anbu operative entered without waiting for permission. "Hokage-sama, Urgent news. Shimura Danzō has escaped from prison with the help of collaborators. He killed 2 guards during the breakout and has successfully fled. The alarm has triggered unrest among the inmates, and the situation is escalating. The third Hokage's face turned pale as he shot to his feet. No, jumped to his feet. What did you say? Danzō escaped? What is that old fool thinking? Does he plan to defect? This would make him a target for a village-wide manhunt. The advisors, Koharu Utatane and Homura Midokado, were equally stunned. Their minds buzzed as if struck by a hammer. Meanwhile, Tsunada's reaction was less shocked and more amused. She let out a dry laugh, her tone dripping with sarcasm. If the situation weren't so serious, she would have taken this opportunity to mock the third Hokage mercilessly. This is the man you've been bending over backward to protect? Was it worth it? Yes, Hokage-sama. The Anbu operative continued, kneeling on one knee and speaking quickly. Danzō orchestrated his escape with the help of a newly assigned support team. He made his move while Nawaki-sama was on a break. Grass is a plant. The third Hokage felt his heart sink. The Jonin support team had been personally selected by him. At the time, it seemed like a trivial matter, and Tsunada had agreed to his decision. But now, it was clear he'd inadvertently placed Danzō's allies in charge, allowing the man to escape. The Hokage realized, too late, that they had underestimated Danzō's deep network of loyalists. Deploy reinforcements to the prison immediately. The third Hokage commanded, his voice trembling with anger. Ensure the prisoners are kept under control. I'll personally lead the effort to recapture Danzō. His frustration boiled over, and blood surged to his throat. A spray of crimson escaped his lips as he coughed violently. Just hours ago, he had arranged for Danzō's cell to be upgraded for comfort, selected a team of trusted Jonin to assist Nawaki, and given every consideration to the man's welfare. And now? Danzō had thrown his goodwill to the ground, grinding it underfoot. The shame of it was unbearable. Abandoning his pipe on the desk, the third Hokage stormed out of the office. Tsunade pinched the bridge of her nose, exhaling deeply as she watched him leave. The elder advisors turned their gaze to her, prompting an irritated response. What? Do you expect me to chase after Danzō too? Cough. No, that's not what we meant. Homura stammered. Their confusion stemmed from Tsunade's uncharacteristic calm. Normally, she would have been livid and lambasting the third Hokage by now. Instead, she simply looked resigned. Rolling her eyes dramatically, Tsunade addressed them. Why don't you both prepare Danzō's wanted notice instead? If the Hokage fails to capture him, we'll issue the bounty immediately. Set the reward at 30 million ryo for now. Once the bounty was issued, it would circulate both within the village and to bounty hunters outside. Whoever returned Danzō, alive or dead, would claim the reward. Takeya, finally. After so long, Danzō's jailbreak has arrived. Chapter 480, Let the third Hokage chase Danzō first. This discussion can continue later. Tsunade said bluntly before leaving. She needed to find Takeya and inform him of the news. As for the third Hokage, Tsunade had little hope he would actually capture Danzō. If he managed not to let Danzō escape again, that would already be a success. Expecting him to apprehend Danzō was as futile as expecting him to deal with Orochimaru in the original timeline. Back then, Orochimaru's crimes had been exposed. If the third Hokage hadn't hesitated due to sentimentality, even with Orochimaru's exceptional escape skills, he wouldn't have gotten away so easily. With no faith in Hyru's and Sarutobi, Tsunade decided to prepare the wanted notice and bounty for Danzō instead. She was confident that Takeya would be more than happy to take on the task of hunting down Danzō. He might even do it without the 30 million ryo bounty. In the Hokage's office, only Koharu Utatane and Homura Midokado remained. Homura removed his glasses and rubbed the sore bridge of his nose. Do you think Hyruzen can actually bring Danzō back? What do you think? Koharu shot him a glare before standing up. You handle the wanted notice. Homura sighed. Danzō was the one who escaped, why am I the one getting yelled at? When Tsunade arrived at Takeya's place, she found him curled up under a blanket, fast asleep. Opening the door, she noticed he didn't react to her presence at all. From his profile, she could see faint dark circles under his eyes. What's he been researching so much? Even if he masters Ai's style, can it really be stronger than the Sharingan? Shaking her head, Tsunade decided not to wake him gently. Instead, she leaned against the doorframe and casually said, Danzō has escaped. The words Danzō has escaped jolted Takeya awake. His eyes snapped open, and he shot upright as if on springs. I knew this day would come. Tsunade smirked in satisfaction. She had known this method would work. If she had tried waking him normally, Takeya would have just rolled over and gone back to sleep, especially with how little rest he'd had recently. But mentioning Danzō, especially his escape, was guaranteed to get a reaction. Though still groggy from lack of sleep, Takuya's mind quickly cleared, and a hint of excitement surfaced in his expression. After all, he'd been waiting for this moment for a long time. The prison had been unusually calm, and Danzo had seemed surprisingly well behaved, showing no signs of making a move, until now. When did he escape? Who helped him? Tsunade had been expecting Takuya to immediately leap out of bed, get dressed, and rush out to hunt Danzo down. Instead, he just sat there, asking questions. Shouldn't he be scrambling to arm himself and chase Danzo down to finish him off outside the village? Why was he still sitting there, looking half asleep? Tsunade stared at Takuya in confusion, her mind filled with question marks. Still, she answered his questions despite his unexpected calmness. About an hour ago. The old man has already gone out with a team to capture him, but I doubt they'll succeed. As for who helped Danzo, it was the Jonin squad the Hokage personally selected to assist Nawaki in guarding the prison. They waited until Nawaki was resting, then ambushed the Anbu operatives and broke Danzo out of his cell. Whether they were coerced or were already working for Danzo remains under investigation. Cough, cough. Takuya, now fully awake, stared at her in disbelief. You're saying the ones who helped Danzo escape were the Jonin squad personally chosen by the Hokage? Takuya couldn't help but exclaim, unbelievable. What a move. Was this pure coincidence, or had Danzo planned it? Did he still have hidden allies within the village? It sounded absurd, but the facts were undeniable. Tsunade shrugged helplessly, raising her hand in a gesture of exasperation. For a moment, Takuya just sat there, stunned. Then, all at once, he burst into laughter. PFFT, ha ha ha. This is too much. My stomach hurts. I can't. Ha ha ha. Takuya doubled over, tears streaming from his eyes as he laughed uncontrollably, even rolling around on the bed. Veins popped on Tsunade's forehead as she tried to keep her temper in check. This is the biggest assist ever. Poor Nawaki, he's going to be absolutely miserable. As the primary guard responsible, Nawaki would be humiliated. For years, this incident would be a mark of shame that others would bring up to tease him. But someone had it even worse. Hiruzen Sarutobi. The third Hokage's face would metaphorically swell from the sheer embarrassment of it all. He had sent reinforcements to assist with guarding Danzo, only for them to end up helping Danzo escape. It was a comedic blunder that would haunt him. Takuya was sure that if this news spread, the third Hokage's reputation would be dragged through the mud. Tsunade sighed, rubbing her forehead with a slender finger. At least this happened while Nawaki was on a break. Otherwise, he'd be shouldering even more blame. But the old man is in real trouble now. He's the one who'll have to bear the brunt of responsibility for this fiasco. Takuya finally stopped laughing long enough to sit up, wiping tears from his eyes. After this blows over, I'll treat Nawaki to a meal and try to soothe his shattered pride. Saying this, Takuya pulled his blanket back over himself, clearly intending to go back to sleep. You're going back to bed? Tsunade asked, incredulous. From under the blanket, Takuya replied in a muffled voice, why not? The Hokage is already on it, so why should I bother? Let him deal with it. Could Danzo be caught? There was a slim chance, but Takuya doubted it. Danzo was far too cunning, capable of evading most tracking methods. In the original timeline, even Orochimaru, with all his hiding skills, was nearly impossible for Jiraiya to find. If Orochimaru could pull it off, so could Danzo. If the Hokage wants to lead the charge personally, let him. It's not the first time he's embarrassed himself, and it certainly won't be the last. Besides, even if he fails, who's going to call him out on it? He's the Hokage, after all. Tsunade also doubted the third Hokage's ability to capture Danzo, but she wouldn't openly admit it, not when he was her teacher. Still, she couldn't deny that Takuya's bluntness was refreshing. Fine, you do you. Hey, what are you? Before she could finish, Takuya pulled her into the blanket. A muffled complaint followed, you little brat. Where do you think you're grabbing? Meanwhile, the third Hokage was leading a group of Anbu operatives in pursuit of Danzo. Tracking was an area of expertise for the Anbu, but Danzo was no ordinary target. The further they searched, the fewer traces they found, and Danzo remained elusive, a testament to the cunning of the man who had evaded so many obstacles in the past. Chapter 481, Danzo threatens Orochimaru. The third Hokage's heart was filled with turmoil and frustration. He dreaded the possibility of Danzo successfully escaping, knowing he would have no way to face the consequences if he failed to bring him back. But he also feared capturing Danzo, only to find him unwilling to surrender. If possible, Hiruzen didn't want things to come to blows with Danzo. They were childhood friends and rivals who had grown up together. Hokage-sama, the trail is growing fainter. Shimura Danzo is highly skilled at concealing his tracks and is extremely familiar with Anbu's tracking techniques. I'm worried, no matter what, we must find Danzo. The third Hokage gritted his teeth in determination. He had deliberately taken a small team of Anbu to pursue Danzō, avoiding a larger operation to prevent unnecessary attention. He didn't want certain individuals, such as Takuya or Minato, to get involved. If Takuya joined the chase, especially with Minato helping, Danzō wouldn't stand a chance. Takuya's hatred for Danzō ran too deep. If they caught him, Danzō wouldn't be given the option to surrender. He would be killed on the spot. The third Hokage couldn't bear to see his old comrade die like that. He needed to capture Danzō quickly before the situation escalated further. Yes, Hokage-sama. The Anbu operatives replied, quickly spreading out to form a net and continue the search. At the same time, watchtowers throughout the area were notified to intercept and report any sightings of Danzō. In the forest, Danzō, now dressed in a fresh set of clothes, moved swiftly with a small group of loyal subordinates. Danzō-sama, we've sent a message to Orochimaru, but I'm concerned, Orochimaru won't dare betray me. If I fall, he won't escape unscathed either. Danzō and Orochimaru were cut from the same cloth, each holding leverage over the other. The moment he escaped, Danzō had sent a message to Orochimaru, who was stationed near the coastline, requesting his assistance to leave the Land of Fire. Additionally, Danzō demanded the return of certain items Orochimaru had taken from him. Danzō's movement through the forest was nothing short of impressive. Gone was the frail, decrepit figure he portrayed in the village. Now, his agility and mastery of the body flicker jutsu were on full display. He wasn't sure who might be pursuing him from Hidden Leaf Village. If it was the third Hokage, Danzō could manage. But if it was Takuya, he was as good as dead. Danzō knew that surrendering to anyone else might spare his life, but if Takuya was involved, there was no room for negotiation. He hadn't gone to all the trouble of escaping prison just to die. Having spent decades navigating Hidden Leaf Village's inner workings, Danzō was intimately familiar with the intelligence and tracking methods employed by the Land of Fire and its shinobi. Tracking him down would not be easy. At the coastline, in a sparse and quiet camp, Orochimaru's sinister chuckle echoed from the command tent. Interesting. Knowing Tsunade, she's probably furious enough to want to punch the old man to death. Danzō's escape, especially with the third Hokage inadvertently aiding him, piqued Orochimaru's curiosity. He couldn't help but wonder how Hiruzen was handling the situation. Should he assist Danzō? After a moment's thought, Orochimaru left a shadow clone to maintain appearances at the camp and quietly slipped away. He reasoned it was worth meeting Danzō. Orochimaru knew precisely why Danzō sought his help. Danzō wanted assistance leaving the Land of Fire, as well as the items Orochimaru had taken from him. In truth, Orochimaru didn't believe Danzō needed his help to escape. With Danzō's vast knowledge and resources, he could evade Hidden Leaf Village's grasp on his own. But the request for assistance was merely a pretext. Danzō's real goal was reclaiming his possessions. When Danzō arrived at the agreed-upon location, Orochimaru was already waiting. Perched on the branch of a large tree, Orochimaru leaned casually against the trunk, arms crossed. His amused gaze swept over Danzō and his small group of subordinates. These must be the last of your loyalists, Danzō-sama. It seems Tsunade's purge hit you harder than expected. Danzō's expression darkened, but Orochimaru continued, his smile widening. Unlike the third Hokage, Tsunade is thorough. When she removes someone from power, she doesn't leave any loose ends. No authority, no influence, no subordinates. What will you use to cause trouble now, Danzō? Don't touch what belongs to me, Orochimaru. Danzō growled, his aged features twisted in anger as he approached. Orochimaru's response was a dismissive smirk. If you hadn't been careless enough to expose yourself, leading Takuya Yagami to scour your underground labs, I wouldn't have needed to move your things. Do you have any idea the risks I took leaving the battlefield? All of this is on you. You're saying Yagami Takuya is looking for my labs? Danzō's tone was sharp, laced with anger and suspicion. His hatred for Takuya was already boundless. If given the chance, he would eliminate Takuya without hesitation. However, Danzō wasn't one to trust anyone, not even his so-called allies like Orochimaru. Orochimaru pulled out a scroll and tossed it to Danzō. The scroll contained a crude map. Everything you're looking for is stored in this underground facility. How you retrieve it is your problem. After this, we're done. No more dealings between us. Oh, really? Danzō thought to himself, sneering inwardly. He held leverage over Orochimaru, enough to make the man tread carefully. After all, Danzō was now a fugitive with nothing to lose. His bounty might increase, but it hardly mattered anymore. Orochimaru, on the other hand, was still a member of Hidden Leaf Village. If certain secrets were exposed, Orochimaru's position could crumble. This secret is enough to keep me alive for a lifetime, Danzō mused, clenching the scroll tightly. But Orochimaru wasn't fazed. Feel free. Orochimaru said with a sinister grin. If you think the third Hokage or Tsunade will act on such flimsy evidence, go ahead and release it. His smile grew sharper. Danzo, I've told you before, people with darkness in their hearts cannot become Hokage. And those who have lost their value are not worth saving. Chapter 482, the Uchiha Hawks begin to stir. Orochimaru, still hold value. Even if you expose me, I'll walk away unscathed. At most, I'll face some questioning, nothing that truly matters. But you, Danzo, you're worthless now. Orochimaru waved his hand dismissively, his tone sharp as a blade. That boy is mine. Everything else is yours. I've lost interest in further research. He turned to leave. Danzo roared in frustration. Impossible. Orochimaru, you had better hand over what belongs to me. After countless experiments, costing the lives of so many, they had finally produced one viable subject. And now, Orochimaru wanted to claim it for himself? Feel free to try taking him back by force. With a cold laugh, Orochimaru strode away without looking back. Danzo's fists clenched tightly, veins bulging on his forehead and neck. His subordinates' hands hovered over their weapons, ready to attack at his command. Damn it! Damn it! Danzo's face turned ashen with rage, and his cane creaked under the pressure of his grip. He wanted to act, to take Orochimaru down right then and there, but deep down, he knew better. Even with his men, he wasn't confident they could defeat Orochimaru. And as for capturing him? That was a pipe dream. Danzo understood all too well how strong Orochimaru truly was. Even though Orochimaru had taken the experimental subject, Danzo couldn't afford to openly retaliate. Cowardice? Fear of failure? Smirking faintly, Orochimaru disappeared into the forest. Danzo's belongings held no appeal for him. After the chain of events that had forced his hand, Danzo was left with no people, no funding, and almost nothing of value in his labs. The boy was the only exception. Even Senju Hashirama cells no longer interested Orochimaru. Why waste time researching Hashirama cells when studying wood style directly is far more productive? As for the experimental subject, a child who couldn't even control a flower, what value could he possibly offer? Let's go. In the end, Danzo chose to back down. It's just one experiment. If it succeeded once, it can succeed again, albeit at the cost of more sacrifices. Outside Hidden Leaf Village, Danzo could acquire funds and gather new test subjects without the need to skulk in shadows as he had within the village. Escaping Hidden Leaf Village wasn't the outcome Danzo had desired, but circumstances forced his hand. Glancing back toward the village, he let out a cold snort. I will return someday. The former Hokage advisor, Shimura Danzo, had escaped. The news couldn't be contained. Once the prison was stabilized, word spread like wildfire, leaving all of Hidden Leaf Village in shock. To most people, especially shinobi, Danzo had always been a lofty figure of power. That such a man could escape from prison was almost inconceivable. Wait, how had someone of his stature even ended up in prison in the first place? The situation made no sense. Having a high-ranking official imprisoned was already shameful, which was why the matter hadn't been made public. But now, with Danzo's escape, everything had come to light. Unfortunately, there wasn't much dirt to uncover. Before the third Hokage could return, the news had spread completely. At this point, even with Koharu Utatane and Hamura Midokado working to suppress it, they had no choice but to issue a wanted notice and bounty. The announcements sent waves through Hidden Leaf Village, sparking widespread uproar. The Uchiha clan was particularly impacted. To them, Danzo was the ultimate adversary, the number one figure who had targeted their clan for years. Now, this hated figure had not only been imprisoned but had escaped. Many in the Uchiha found it unbelievable. But as the shock wore off, it was replaced with delight. If Danzo, the leading opponent of the Uchiha, was gone, didn't that mean the clan's future would be less troubled? Under the clan leader's orders, the Uchiha elders and several jonin convened an emergency meeting. Everyone of significant status or strength was present, except for Mikoto Uchiha. Having Takeya as her ally, Mikoto never got involved in such matters. While there were some dissenting voices within the clan regarding her, Fugaku had quashed them. Mikoto was destined to leave the Uchiha, perhaps even changing her surname. There was no point antagonizing Takeya over a woman. With the village leadership already hostile toward them, the last thing the Uchiha needed was additional enemies, especially not someone as influential as Takeya, backed by Tsunade and Hidden Leaf Village's younger generation of powerhouses. In the dimly lit underground meeting room within the Uchiha shrine, the clan's leaders had gathered. Fugaku Uchiha, the clan head, sat at the central seat of honor. To his left and right were the clan elders and the most powerful elite jonin. Those of lower rank sat farther down, and those without seats stood at the back. For the Uchiha, strength mattered more than seniority. The stronger you were, the more benefits and respect you earned. The room buzzed with murmured discussions about Danzo's escape. Everyone. Fugaku's voice rang out, silencing the room as all eyes turned to him. Once he had the attention of his clan, Fugaku spoke with a grave expression. As you all know, Shimura Danzo, the primary antagonist against our Uchiha clan, escaped from Hidden Leaf Village's prison earlier today and has fled the village. As your clan leader, I've called this emergency meeting because I believe Danzo's escape signals a turning point, a chance for the Uchiha to rise and reclaim their rightful place. The room erupted in murmurs of shock. Fugaku rarely made such statements. He typically remained neutral, allowing the hawks and doves within the clan to debate freely without showing favoritism. Clan head, are you saying the Uchiha should aim for the center of the village's power? One of the hawkish elders stood up, his excitement evident. What nonsense! Fugaku nearly rolled his eyes. Ridiculous. The Uchiha's priority isn't to seize power, it's to eliminate the village's surveillance and distrust of us. Only then can we coexist peacefully with the village. Hearing such dangerous words from the hawkish elder, one of the doves immediately stood to refute him. You're spouting nonsense. Only by entering the village's power center can the Uchiha avoid being ostracized. Old fool, you. As the two sides bickered, their faces red with anger and their voices rising, Fugaku could hardly contain his frustration. Enough. He slammed the table, his voice silencing the room. Look at yourselves. Fugaku's face darkened as he glared at the elders. You're squabbling like children. Have some dignity. The younger Jonin exchanged awkward glances. While arguments between the elders were common, seeing them come close to blows was a first. After scolding the elders, Fugaku sighed heavily and raised his hand to explain. Gaining a foothold in the power center is indeed a goal for the Uchiha. As one of Hidden Leaf Village's great clans, we must aspire to compete for the position of Hokage. The hawks smiled at his words. But Fugaku quickly continued. However, the precondition for entering the power center is that the leadership must be willing to accept us. Without that, we can't even begin to eliminate the surveillance and hostility directed at us. Chapter 483, Fugaku, Tsunade is here. Am I coming at a bad time? Hidden Leaf Village's surveillance of the Uchiha clan wasn't as extreme as it would be after the Nine Tails incident, but it was far from lenient. The Anbu practically monitored the Uchiha district openly, barely stopping short of outright warning them, don't make any trouble, you're being watched. Thinking about entering Hidden Leaf Village's power center without gaining the leadership's trust and easing their vigilance? That was nothing short of a pipe dream. What are you suggesting, clan head? The current Hokage is aging. We need to build a good relationship with Tsunade to stabilize our position. Unlike the Hokage and the Elder Council, Tsunade doesn't hold a grudge against the Uchiha. This is an opportunity. To foster a relationship with her, we must work through Yagami Takuya. The room fell into contemplative silence. Fugaku Uchiha's words were blunt but true. To eliminate the leadership's distrust and gain their acceptance, they needed to start with Tsunade. Approaching her directly was out of the question. Takuya was the best intermediary. But was Takuya someone they could easily approach? Certainly not. In the dim underground meeting room, many Uchiha cast glances at the elders who had previously clashed with Takuya. Why are you all looking at me? One elder glared back, stroking his beard. If apologizing to Yagami Takuya is what it takes to win his favor, then I'll swallow my pride and offer my apology, even if it means stepping down as an elder. Regardless of whether they were hawks or doves, the elders all shared the same ultimate goal, the prosperity of the Uchiha. Their approaches differed, but they were united in purpose. When the situation called for it, they were willing to make sacrifices. Count me in. Another elder declared. What's a little embarrassment or loss of face? For the sake of the clan, it was a small price to pay. Takuya might have once been considered an outsider, a half-blood who didn't behave like a typical Uchiha. But now, Takuya was undoubtedly a powerhouse with Uchiha lineage. No matter how much he denied it, his blood ties to the Uchiha and his possession of the Sharingan couldn't be erased. The willingness of these elders to apologize was the best course of action, even if Takuya might not accept it. Fugaku stood and bowed deeply to the elders, his gratitude sincere. Regardless of the outcome, I, Fugaku Uchiha, must thank you on behalf of the Uchiha. I will personally visit Yagami Takuya to discuss this matter with him. Clan head. For a moment, many in the room were moved by Fugaku's gesture. Meanwhile, Takuya was oblivious to all of this. Having slept the entire day, he had just woken up, more accurately, his hunger had forced him out of bed. He hadn't even reached the kitchen when the doorbell rang. Opening the door, Takuya raised an eyebrow at the person standing outside. What's this about? Hadn't he already asked Mikoto to relay his message? Why was Fugaku here anyway? Fugaku looked slightly awkward, uninvited as he was. Takuya had made it clear through Mikoto that he didn't want to meet or discuss any Uchiha matters. Yet here Fugaku was. Fine, come in. Since he was already here, it didn't feel right to turn him away. In the past, Takuya wouldn't have given him the time of day, especially during Fugaku's haughty "I'm the young master" phase. But the current Fugaku was a changed man, tempered by reality. Considering the benefits he had given Mikoto, Takuya decided to show some courtesy. Thank you. Fugaku stepped inside, removing his shoes at the door. He had considered bringing a gift but decided against it, recalling how poorly such gestures had gone over in the past. Take a seat. Takuya gestured for him to sit while he retrieved 2 bottles of water from the fridge. Tea? Too much effort at the moment. Who's here? Just as Fugaku settled on the sofa, a familiar voice rang out from the bedroom. His body tensed, and his movements became stiff. No way. Am I interrupting something? No wonder Takuya had looked so irritated when he opened the door. Fugaku's worst fears were confirmed when Tsunade, her hair a mess and yawning sleepily, emerged. She grumbled as she walked, I told you, no more late nights, I'm too busy for this. Wait, what are you doing here? Tsunade froze when she spotted Fugaku on the sofa. Fugaku immediately jumped to his feet and bowed. Tsunade-sama. What kind of dangerous nonsense were you muttering just now? Anyone hearing this would get the wrong idea. Takuya, exasperated, placed the water bottles on the coffee table. Alright, you two talk. Tsunade waved dismissively and headed for the bathroom. Takuya, annoyed, shot back, what do you mean you two talk? This is for you to handle. With Hidden Leaf Village's prison incident fresh in everyone's minds, Fugaku's visit clearly had a purpose. Takuya had no interest in playing mediator. Me? Tsunade blinked and pointed at herself. Who else? I'm not wasting my time playing the middleman. Giving her a gentle push toward the living room, Takuya headed to the kitchen. You two talk it out. I'll make some food. So it's me he's here to see. Still a bit groggy, Tsunade washed up in the bathroom. Once her mind cleared, she realized Fugaku really had come for her. Initially, he had intended to meet Takuya, but with her present, Takuya had deflected everything to her. Tsunade didn't waste time on formalities. She got straight to the point, let me be blunt. As long as your Uchiha clan behaves itself, I can ensure that your lives won't be negatively affected in any way. Targeting the Uchiha. Spare me. I'm already swamped as it is. While Tsunade admired her granduncle Obirama Senshu, she believed his approach to handling the Uchiha had been excessively harsh. Over the generations, things had only worsened. The Uchiha were now in a pitiable state, targeted despite doing nothing wrong. Though, to be fair, the clan bore some responsibility for their predicament. Madara Uchiha's rebellion and the chaos it caused, which led to Hashirama Senshu's early death, as well as the dangerous lengths some Uchiha went to for power, such as awakening the Mangekyō Sharingan, had all contributed to their plight. Chapter 484, Uchiha's Rise and Fall, all tied to the police force. Hearing this, Fugaku Uchiha quickly responded, Tsunade-sama, the Uchiha clan has never done anything to threaten the village or harm its interests. Yet the targeting and mistrust we face. I'm well aware of why the Uchiha are being targeted. Tsunade interrupted, her tone firm. But there are situations I cannot change right now. She continued, her expression serious, I'll consider your request carefully. But if there's nothing else, you should leave. To lift the surveillance and suspicion toward the Uchiha wasn't something that could be done easily. Even though Tsunade had gained significant control over the village's affairs, she was still constrained. At best, she could maintain the status quo and prevent the situation from worsening. The rest would have to wait until she was in a stronger position to act. As for whether the situation would change, Tsunade needed time to think. Fugaku left, and neither Tsunade nor Takuya bothered inviting him to stay for the meal. Takuya emerged from the kitchen, placing 2 plates of rice bowls on the coffee table. Picking up a spoon, he started eating heartily. Tsunade gave him a side eye. Are you seriously just going to sit there and say nothing? What else would I do? Takuya chuckled, amused. The Uchiha want to pledge loyalty to you, not me. Why should I care? But their ambition isn't small, they're trying to reclaim elder status in the council. In Hidden Leaf Village's early days, clans that contributed significantly to the village were granted elder positions. However, some clans held titles without any real power. The Uchiha were the prime example of this. They were excluded from village affairs, their opinions rarely sought. The Hyuga clan, in contrast, chose to keep a low profile. Unless summoned, they rarely participated in council meetings. The Uchiha wanted a seat at the table but had no opportunity to claim it. Big appetite, huh? Aren't they afraid they'll choke on their own ambition? Tsunade frowned. The Uchiha were still under surveillance and scrutiny. Wasn't it a bit premature to start thinking about benefits? They can have it, Takuya said suddenly. What? Tsunoda's eyes widened, thinking she had misheard. She hadn't. Takuya pointed his spoon in the air for emphasis. If the Uchiha pledge loyalty and obey your instructions, and if Fugaku can handle the Hawks in his clan, what's the harm in giving them elder rights? You're not joking? Tsunoda's tone grew sharper. Returning the Uchiha's elder rights would undoubtedly cause an uproar. The third Hokage, the two elder advisors, and even some clans would vehemently oppose such a move. Do I look like I'm joking? Noticing the hint of anger in Tsunoda's gaze, Takuya quickly shifted his tone. As long as the Uchiha behave, why not? Restoring their elder status isn't a gift, it's returning what's rightfully theirs. Go on. I'm listening. Tsunoda put down her spoon, finding the food suddenly less appetizing. Takuya took a moment to gather his thoughts before continuing. You're going to become the fourth Hokage eventually. When that happens, the Uchiha will be one of your strongest assets. Think about it, how many Jonin does Hidden Leaf Village have? The Uchiha alone make up nearly a tenth of that number. Do you realize what that means? And these aren't ordinary Jonin. Even without awakening their Sharingan, Uchiha ninja are significantly stronger than average. I'm not denying the Uchiha's strength, Tsunoda said, slamming her hand on the table for emphasis. But don't forget, the police force is under their control. It's a critical department with substantial authority. If they regain elder rights, their power could inflate dangerously. Takuya nearly choked on his food, struggling to hold back laughter. Tsunoda clenched her fists, tempted to punch him. With a sigh, Takuya composed himself, a wry smile on his face. No wonder they say women with long hair lack foresight. Just kidding, just kidding. You're not wrong, the police force is important and powerful. But here's the thing, the Uchiha's success and failure both lie with the police force. Even if they regain elder rights, the police force ensures they can't stir up too much trouble. The police force had great authority, but at what cost? The Uchiha had clung to their control over the department so fiercely that their reputation had been dragged through the mud. After a brief pause, Takuya elaborated, sure, clans like the Saratobi, Shimura, and the Inoshikacho trio are all strong. But would they ever truly align with you? No. They'll always have their own interests. But the Uchiha? They have no allies. Their reputation is in the gutter because of the police force, and their arrogance, coupled with the village's mistrust, has left them isolated. You're their only lifeline. Takuya's voice grew firmer. If you offer them even a sliver of goodwill, say, restoring elder rights, they'll become the sharpest blade in your arsenal. But a blade that sharp could hurt its wielder. Tsunoda frowned. The Uchiha are too complicated to handle. Then it's not your problem. Takuya clapped his hands as if closing the matter. All you need to do is keep Fugaku in check. Fugaku might be soft when it comes to the village, but he's ruthless with his own people. Keep him on a leash for a while, then offer him this deal. Tell him you're open to welcoming the Uchiha back into the fold. Restore their elder rights. Ease the village's surveillance. Allow them to integrate into Hidden Leaf Village. But he has to deal with the Hawks and his clan first. The Hawks were aggressive but ultimately harmless. The Doves were useless, soft and spineless. With Fugaku's leadership, neither faction could cause significant trouble. Most importantly, the Uchiha have no allies. Not a single clan will stand with them. If they want to improve their situation and regain their rightful place, they have no choice but to align with you. Note Tsunoda, no progress. Without you, they remain the same ostracized Uchiha as before. Takuya leaned back with a confident smirk. They'll never become Hokage. Any other clan might have a chance at the seat, but not the Uchiha. That's the reality. I'll think about it. Tsunoda tapped her fingers on the table, deciding she needed to give the matter serious consideration. Chapter 485, Stirring the Pot, then letting him die. Accepting the Uchiha's allegiance wasn't a simple matter. Striking the right balance was far from easy. What about the Hyuga? The Hyuga and Uchiha clans were notoriously at odds, even though this rivalry was largely the result of manipulation by the higher-ups. Currently, the relationship between the two clans was poor. If the Uchiha rose to prominence, the Hyuga would undoubtedly jump in to oppose them. PFFT Tsunoda's mention of the Hyuga was all it took for Takuya to burst out laughing. Coughing to compose himself, he said, I wasn't trying to mock you. I'm just laughing at the Hyuga. Where do they get the nerve to challenge the Uchiha? Strength? Connections? Something else? In terms of numbers, the Uchiha's ninjas were about 3 times that of the Hyugas. As for elite fighters, the Hyuga barely had a third of what the Uchiha could muster. Connections? Let's not kid ourselves, they're both on the same level. The difference was that the Uchiha were widely despised, while the Hyuga were not. But realistically, the Hyuga's position in Hidden Leaf Village wasn't much better. At best, they could rally a few minor clans to support them, but those clans had little to no real influence. Thinking over the Hyuga's situation, Tsunade realized she was overthinking things. This was a clan centered entirely around its main family. Expecting anything substantial from them was pointless. The Uchiha, at least, had the audacity to fight and kill when necessary. The Hyuga? They'd rather curl up and quietly persist, ensuring the main and branch families avoided disruption. With such a mindset, how could they possibly have any future? What about Danzō? Aren't you worried about him escaping? Let him run for now. The third Hokage was busy chasing down his dear old friend. Why should Takuya jump into the fray? Once Danzō's crimes were thoroughly established, he could deal with him later. Danzō's escape also marked the end of Nawaki's mission. However, Nawaki was far from happy. The mission's conclusion came in the form of failure. Damn it. The Hokage-sama shouldn't have reassigned a Jonin team to assist. None of this would have happened. Danzō had been securely locked up. With Nawaki and the Anbu keeping watch, it was tough but at least safe. For so long, there hadn't been a single issue. Yet, not long after the third Hokage sent reinforcements, Danzō managed to escape. Nawaki couldn't help but suspect the third Hokage might have intentionally let Danzō go. Without outside help, Danzō could never have escaped on his own. Minato sympathetically patted Nawaki's shoulder. It was impossible not to feel frustrated after such an incident. If it had been Minato, he might have been swearing up a storm, worse than Nawaki, even. Don't think the little son wouldn't curse. He just hadn't encountered anything infuriating enough. When that day came, he'd curse just like anyone else, maybe even better, thanks to the lessons he'd picked up from Takuya. Swearing eloquently, without using a single curse word, that was an art Takuya had mastered. Don't beat yourself up over it. No one wanted this to happen. No, I wanted it to. Takuya said, laughing heartily. He wasn't mocking Nawaki, he genuinely wanted Danzō to escape and run. Minato barely managed to suppress his laughter. It wouldn't do Nawaki any good if he joined in, and it might even provoke him into a scuffle. To diffuse the tension, Minato changed the subject. Speaking of which, the Hokage-sama has been out of the village for 3 days now. Looks like Danzō will be hard to catch. Who knows? Takuya was utterly indifferent. The harder Danzō was to catch, the better. I hope they never catch him. That way, we can deal with him later. The thought of his failed mission made Nawaki gnash his teeth in frustration. After cursing a few more times, he looked up at Takuya. By the way, is it you behind all the rumors about Danzō over the past couple of days? Although the village had issued a wanted notice and bounty for Danzō, the specifics of his crimes were initially withheld. But this restraint lasted only a day before the tide turned. Danzō's countless misdeeds were exposed and spread like wildfire. The people of Hidden Leaf Village, both shinobi and civilians, were utterly shocked. Aside from those directly involved, who could have imagined that a former high-ranking advisor had committed so many heinous acts? The uproar was massive. The outrage against Danzō grew by the day. His actions became the talk of the village, with every conversation inevitably ending in someone cursing him out. He wasn't just condemned, even his ancestors were dragged through the mud. The Shimura clan didn't dare leave their compound, fearing retribution against them for Danzō's actions. It was a reasonable precaution, but the villagers weren't buying it. Many of Danzō's deeds had been covertly supported by the Shimura clan. With Danzō gone, the villagers weren't about to let the Shimura clan off the hook. Their misfortune also extended to the Sarutobi clan, who were now enduring hard times as well. I only provided the evidence. The rest has nothing to do with me, Takuya said with a sly grin. He'd been waiting for this day for a long time, preparing to ensure Danzō's complete downfall. If he couldn't kill Danzō outright, he'd at least make him the most despised figure in the village, a public enemy. I knew it was you. Nawaki slammed the table in approval. Well done. Agreed. Minato added, clearly pleased to see Danzō turned into a pariah. Though it seems like plenty of people are eager to pile on now. Ordinarily, such a scandal involving a senior village official would be swiftly covered up to preserve the village's reputation. But days had passed, and no one had stepped forward to address the situation. Tsunade ignored it, and with the third Hokage out of the village, Danzō's reputation continued to deteriorate unchecked. What Nawaki and Minato didn't know was that efforts had been made, but they had been utterly ineffective. As soon as the scandal broke, Koharu Utatane and Hamura Midokado approached Tsunade, urging her to intervene. They were trying to protect Danzō, they were worried about being implicated themselves. Additionally, having such a scandal circulate about the leadership tarnished the village's image. However, Tsunade brushed them off with a single sentence, the old man will handle it when he gets back. Left with no choice, the two elders turned to Kakashi Hatake, who now led the Anbu. Hoping he would use the Anbu to suppress the rumors, they were met with a firm refusal. Without a direct order from the Hokage, I won't act. Tsunoda's dismissal they could tolerate. But Tsukumo's blunt rejection, showing them no respect, left them fuming. With the third Hokage absent, Tsunoda indifferent, and Tsukumo beyond their influence, the elders were powerless. Meanwhile, the Shimura and Sarutobi clans could only watch helplessly as the situation worsened. Danzo's infamy didn't just shake Hidden Leaf Village, it spread throughout the ninja world. Spies embedded in Hidden Leaf Village from villages like Hidden Sand Village, Hidden Stones Village, Hidden Clouds Village, and even Hidden Mist Village across the sea relayed the news back home. Chapter 486, Hidden Stones Village's occupation of the land of Grass. Poor Raza was busy mining in the desert, leaving intelligence scrolls to be delivered to Chio, who was managing the village's affairs in his stead. Lady Chio, the news about Hidden Leaf Village's scandal will soon spread across the entire ninja world. Should we try to contain it? Hidden Leaf Village was, after all, an ally on the surface. Doing absolutely nothing and watching the news spread felt a bit inappropriate. Setting down the scroll, Chio replied calmly, with the Kazekage absent from the village, I don't have the authority to handle this matter. Leave it as it is for now, everything can wait until the Kazekage returns. Suppress it? Why would we suppress it? Hidden Sand Village has been tormented so miserably by Hidden Leaf Village, yet they never suppressed or mitigated any of those humiliating incidents for us. We're not the ones actively spreading the news anyway. Besides, is Hidden Leaf Village so scared of people knowing about their disgraceful deeds? Let the scandal explode. It has absolutely nothing to do with Hidden Sand Village. Hidden Sand Village decisively adopted a stance of neither actively spreading nor rejecting the news. Hidden Mist Village did the same. In contrast, Hidden Stones Village and Hidden Clouds Village gleefully helped spread the news, causing it to circulate through the ninja world in record time. Hidden Leaf Village's scandal had blown up. Danzo Shimura, the Hokage's advisor, was exposed for committing numerous unethical acts. He secretly conducted human experiments, abducted people for those experiments, and even targeted Hidden Leaf Village's own villagers. Deploy personnel and continue the search. At this moment, the third Hokage was deeply troubled. His face, already wrinkled, seemed to have aged several years in just a few days. He had led a team out of the village to capture Danzo, but they hadn't been able to apprehend him or even catch sight of him. Every time they were close, Danzo found a way to evade them, leaving the third Hokage and his team chasing shadows. While the third Hokage was busy hunting Danzo, unrest was brewing back in the village. The most notable agitators were Koharu Udatane, Hamura Mitakato, and members of the Shimura and Sarutobi clans. Danzo had become a rat everyone wanted to stomp on, and the Shimura clan suffered by association, though not undeservedly. But at this point, who would willingly accompany Danzo into the depths of despair? Certainly no one. Even the Shimura clan had to distance themselves from him. While they wanted to draw a line, the villagers weren't so accommodating. Since they couldn't find Danzo, their anger shifted to the Shimura clan. The Shimura clan's misfortune also extended to the Sarutobi clan. Although the two clans seemed unrelated, their interests were deeply intertwined. Elders, is there really no other solution? Danzo had become a rat everyone hated, and the Shimura clan was caught in the crossfire. Although the Shimura clan's rise was closely tied to Danzo, they had at least publicly distanced themselves from him early on. But the villagers didn't care about any of that. Because Danzo was a member of the Shimura clan. Just saying you have nothing to do with him doesn't make it true. The representative of the Sarutobi clan nodded silently. If things continued like this, the Sarutobi clan might be dragged down too. And at such a critical moment, the third Hokage was absent from the village. What can we do? Koharu Udatane was furious. She pointed a finger at the Shimura clan leader and berated him. Danzo committed crimes and was thrown into prison. He should have stayed there quietly. But no, you had to send him benefits, didn't you? Now you've dragged the entire Shimura clan into this mess. How was I supposed to know things would get this bad? The Shimura clan leader looked distressed. Seeing that Koharu was about to continue, Hamura Mitakato quickly stopped her and addressed the representatives of the Sarutobi and Shimura clans seriously. This situation is already beyond our control. In fact, we've approached Tsunoda, but she refused to help us. The advisory elder's power depended entirely on the Hokage's attitude. When the third Hokage was in power, their authority was immense, allowing them to interfere in many matters. But under Tsunoda, even though she hadn't officially assumed office, their power had significantly diminished. Even Kakashi Hatake, the newly appointed Anbu commander, doesn't look favorably on us. Hamura said with a bitter smile. Thanks to past incidents, he's deeply resentful, another one of Danzo's masterpieces. Everyone was left speechless. Although the third Hokage hadn't directly participated in those events, his choice to neither support nor oppose Danzo's actions had enabled them. But we can't let this situation continue to spiral out of control. The Shimura clan leader was anxious. Elders, send someone to investigate. Right now, not just the entire village but probably the entire ninja world is discussing this scandal. Hidden Leaf Village's disgrace is too significant, and Danzo even served as a Hokage advisor. If this continues, every other village will mock us. Now you're worried? Where was this concern earlier? The Shimura clan's issues won't be resolved so easily. Tsunade will likely hold them accountable in the future. Danzo's schemes propelled the Shimura clan, a previously ordinary ninja family, into prominence. But now that Danzo had fallen, the Shimura clan would inevitably face retribution. Hamura sighed. Send someone to inform Hiruzen. Tell him to abandon the search for Danzo and return to the village immediately. Otherwise, the chaos will only worsen. At this point, nothing else could be done. The only solution was for the third Hokage to return and take charge. Only his presence could suppress the growing dissent. Even if Danzo's crimes were fully confirmed, they couldn't implicate anyone else. Otherwise, the situation would snowball and spiral out of control, dragging everyone down with it. In that case, it wouldn't just be a few individuals, it would be all the families who profited from their connections, especially those who had benefited in unsavory ways. Koharu Utain and Hamura Midokado had already thought about sending someone to urge the third Hokage to return and stop pursuing Danzo. Unfortunately, those sent to deliver the message failed to convince him. With no other options, the Sarutobi and Shimura clans could only repeatedly send messengers, hoping the third Hokage would give up the search for Danzo and return to stabilize the situation. Tsunade, meanwhile, wasn't concerned with village politics, as more pressing issues had arisen. Kakashi Hatake's intelligence team, stationed in the Land of Grass, reported sightings of large numbers of Hidden Stone's village shinobi. The Land of Grass, supposedly an ally of Hidden Leaf Village, had effectively become Hidden Stone's village's backyard. Their actions had crossed the line, violating the non-aggression pact between the 5 great shinobi nations. Tsunade immediately made a decisive response, sending a team to Hidden Grass Village for negotiations. Due to Takuya's extreme disdain for Hidden Grass Village and her reminders, Tsunade had already stopped viewing them as true allies. Anticipating trouble, Tsunade had stationed numerous forces along the border to prevent Hidden Stone's village from using Hidden Grass Village as a stepping stone to invade Hidden Leaf Village. Had Hidden Leaf Village continued treating Hidden Grass Village as an ally, Hidden Stone's village's army might have marched into the Land of Fire, leaving Hidden Leaf Village unaware of what had happened. With the risk of war with Hidden Stone's village looming, Tsunade recalled the ninja forces stationed along the coastline. Orochimaru successfully returned to Hidden Leaf Village with his team. Chapter 487, Heading North, the mountain graveyard holds what you seek. Returning to Hidden Leaf Village, Orochimaru completed his mission report in the Hokage's office with Tsunade and then sought out Takuya. This weather is getting colder and colder. Takuya muttered as he walked along the empty streets, braving the biting wind. Pushing open the wooden door of a small, secluded restaurant at the end of the street, he rubbed his face in frustration. The little restaurant was quiet, with only Orochimaru sitting alone in a corner. Walking over, Takuya sat down opposite him. Pouring himself a cup of hot tea, he warmed his hands and glanced at Orochimaru. I thought you'd take longer to find me. Because of Tsunade? Orochimaru raised an eyebrow, a faint smile playing on his lips. There's no rivalry between Tsunade and me, not even concerning the Hokage position. You've certainly let it go. Weren't you once fervently vying to become the 4th Hokage? And now, you're saying you've given up just like that? If Danzo were still around, he'd be furious at you. After all that scheming, the moment Tsunade stood up, you decisively stepped aside, rendering all your prior efforts meaningless. Well, as long as it makes you happy. Takuya remarked, warming his palms before getting to the point. Where are the people I asked for? They can be delivered to you anytime. Orochimaru replied with a faint smile, but... He trailed off, clearly implying that while he could provide the people, he expected something in return. Takuya didn't bother with pleasantries. He pulled out 2 scrolls from his cloak and placed them on the table. These are my research findings and tests on Ai's style. Take your time with them. Yagura exchanged the great sword Seimata for 2 shinobi from the Yuki clan. Those 2 reside in the research facility I built. As long as you don't harm them, you can ask them anything you don't understand. Orochimaru accepted the scrolls but remained silent, staring at Takuya expectantly. Clearly, just this information wasn't enough to satisfy him. Head north. Takuya said flatly. Find the mountain graveyard, and you'll get the answers you're seeking. But be careful, if you're not well prepared, you might not return. Given his age, Madara Uchiha should be very old by now, and logically, his power should have waned considerably. But if Orochimaru truly sought out Madara's hideout, there was a good chance he wouldn't make it back. Even though Madara's Rinnegan had long since been transplanted into Nagato, it was important to remember that Madara, even with an ordinary Sharingan, could still unleash Susanoo. Don't be fooled by his frail appearance, he's still dangerous. Takuya figured that if Orochimaru went looking for trouble, Madara might be able to handle him with a mere glance. If Itachi Uchiha could silently ensnare Orochimaru in a Genjutsu, Takuya had no doubt that Madara could do the same, if not worse. After all, Madara was a master of deception and manipulation. Consider the fate of the ill-fated third Mizukage. Madara's Genjutsu was no joke. While Orochimaru excelled at escaping, his mental resilience left much to be desired. Compared to Tsunade and Jiraiya, this was a glaring weakness of his. Fortunately, Orochimaru hadn't yet swapped bodies at this time. If he clashed with an elderly Madara, whether he could survive was still uncertain. Is that so? Now I'm even more intrigued. Orochimaru said with a sinister grin. He wasn't one to be easily frightened, even if Takuya's words sounded ominous. Suit yourself. Takuya replied. If you're not afraid of dying, then go ahead and try. As Takuya left, Orochimaru frowned, watching his retreating figure. He could tell that Takuya wasn't joking or warning him but genuinely advising caution. That place sounded exceedingly dangerous, a wrong step could cost one's life. If even Takuya found it perilous, could Orochimaru leave unscathed? Walking through the streets, Takuya noticed that the village was once again enveloped in the atmosphere of war. It seems a new war is brewing. Hidden Leaf Village had entered a state of war preparation, indicating that conflict was inevitable. Hidden Stone's village's patience had worn thin. With a massive military force but insufficient financial resources to sustain it, Hidden Stone's village's military strength had become a burden. To alleviate this burden and gain benefits, war was their only option. It was the perfect timing. Hidden Leaf Village had recently emerged from battles with Hidden Mist Village and Hidden Sand Village and was still weak. If Hidden Stone's village declared war, Hidden Leaf Village would be at a disadvantage. The situation was clear. Even if Onoki lacked any military acumen, he would seize this rare opportunity. Not to mention, Onoki was a notoriously difficult adversary. In the original story, Hidden Leaf Village suffered more from Hidden Stone's village's attacks than from its conflicts with Hidden Sand Village or Hidden Mist Village. If not for being forced to retreat, the final victor of the war would have been uncertain. One could only lament the strange and sudden death of the third Raikage. If not for his demise, which forced Hidden Cloud's village to fixate on Hidden Stone's village, Onoki might never have chosen to withdraw his forces. Compared to the weakened Hidden Leaf Village, Hidden Cloud's village was a far greater threat to Hidden Stone's village. Wars aren't decided by the destruction of a single bridge. Hokage-sama. Members of the Anbu escorted several handcuffed individuals to the third Hokage. Matsumizu? Why? The third Hokage's face darkened, nearly dripping with anger. Why would you do this? Where is Danzō? After days of effort, not only had they failed to capture Danzō, but an elite team sent to aid the prison had betrayed them and been caught instead. It was obvious, Danzō had used this squad as bait to distract the village's attention. I will never betray Lord Danzō. Matsumizu's declaration nearly caused the third Hokage to spit blood in frustration. Take him away and interrogate him immediately. We must find Danzō's whereabouts. Time was running out. Hidden Stone's village was no longer merely stirring, it was far beyond that. Large numbers of Hidden Stone's village shinobi had already infiltrated the Land of Grass and could invade the Land of Fire at any moment. The village was in chaos. Tsunade ignored everything unrelated to war preparation, focusing solely on mobilizing for the inevitable conflict to avoid being caught off guard. Koharu Utatane and Hamura Midokado had sent repeated messages urging the third Hokage to abandon his pursuit of Danzō and return to stabilize the village. Even the Sarutobi and Shimura clans had been persistently pushing him to come back. The third Hokage understood the urgency in the village, and he too felt the pressure. But he also knew that if he gave up this chance, capturing Danzō in the future would become nearly impossible. The interrogation proceeded swiftly. A member of the Yamanaka clan used their secret techniques to probe Matsumizu's mind, extracting all the information the third Hokage wanted. Hokage-sama. An Anbu operative reported. Matsumizu accepted favors from Danzō years ago. Under his influence, he decided to help Danzō. After Danzō fled Hidden Leaf Village, Matsumizu followed his orders, creating distractions and leaving behind false trails. As for Danzō. Chapter 488, If it's a fight you want, bring it on. Hidden Leaf Village has never backed down. The past few days had been an exhausting and fruitless effort. Everything had unfolded exactly as Danzō had calculated. The third Hokage felt a wave of dizziness, nearly losing his breath in frustration. Take them back to the village and hand them over to Tsunade for judgment. His voice was heavy with disappointment, his spirit dampened by the failures. Despite his reluctance, the situation forced him to abandon the pursuit of Danzō. Meanwhile, Hidden Stone's village, preparing to attack Hidden Leaf village, was likely thrilled to see the third Hokage embroiled in the drama outside the village, hoping he would never return. Thus, the grand operation to capture Danzō ended in failure. Danzō had escaped, and Hiruzen had been unable to bring him to justice. "Old man, are you okay?" Tsunade couldn't help but ask, worry creeping into her voice. Though she couldn't deny her teacher's age was catching up with him, it was alarming to see him looking so pale and lifeless after just a few days away from the village. Hiruzen's face was ashen, his eyes hollow, as though he had just recovered from a severe illness. Cough, I'm fine," he said, waving her off weakly. "It's just that this whole ordeal has left me deeply unsettled. I'm incredibly disappointed in Danzō." Tsunade furrowed her brow as she watched him cough. His words carried an undeniable weariness. "Tsunade, it's time to prepare," he continued. "It may feel abrupt, but I believe the moment has come. I'm tired. I've carried this burden long enough." Danzō's escape had caused massive collateral damage. The Sarutobi and Shimura clans, along with several other high-ranking figures who had once worked closely with Danzō, were all caught in the fallout. Hidden Leaf village was now a chaotic mess, all thanks to Danzō. Hiruzen couldn't shake the feeling that he had failed as Hokage. "Now's not the time to step back," Tsunade said, rubbing her temples in frustration. "A new war is about to begin. Do you really think it's appropriate to throw in the towel now?" She was trying hard to restrain herself from yelling at him outright. Recent days had left her overwhelmed, running from one responsibility to another without pause. "I know it's not ideal," Hiruzen admitted with a sigh. "But Danzō's current state is partly my responsibility. I intend to lead by example and redeem the Sarutobi and Shimura clans on the battlefield. We'll prove our loyalty to the village through action and merit. It's too late for that." Tsunade's arms crossed firmly, her tone leaving no room for argument. "Too late?" Hiruzen blinked in confusion. Was she saying he couldn't even set foot on the battlefield anymore? "Face it, old man," she said bluntly. "The future belongs to the younger generation. Your time has passed. It's better for you to stay in the village and enjoy a peaceful life. The battlefield is where young shinobi grow, it's the perfect place for them to prove themselves." Her words carried a challenge. "Or is it that you don't want me to build my own trusted circle? Send you to the battlefield?" Tsunade thought. What a joke. What would the other villages think if Hidden Leaf village sent their aging third Hokage to fight? It would make her, a soon-to-be fourth Hokage, look weak and laughable. "Even if it's not ideal," she continued, "if you're so insistent on stepping down, then do it quickly. I'm already prepared for the responsibilities that come with war." She added sharply, "The Sarutobi and Shimura clans can send as many ninjas to the battlefield as they want. I'm not going to punish innocent people for Danzō's crimes by burdening them with baseless accusations."